Chapter 281, A Bouquet of Chrysanthemums. Instructor Liu wanted to see Zhao Feng's shocked expression. However, Zhang Han stood up and walked backwards. Instructor Liu was shocked, seeing that the boss was about to leave. He didn't have time to expect Zhao Feng's surprise and said quickly, "Boss, as long as you agree, you will be the instructor of Wolfhead and will be given the title of Major General. All the treasures that will be acquired by Cloud Soul in the future will be selected by you first." Ahem. Zhao Feng choked and his mouth trembled. He was a little shocked. "What, Major General?" "Yes, Mr. Zhang, as long as you agree, we can call you General Zhang from now on." Instructor Liu stared at Zhang Han's back nervously. His uncle had paid a heavy price. Although it was nominal, he would also enjoy the proper treatment. This was also the trump card of Instructor Liu. Free choice of treasures for now, plus the position of the general, as well as the promise of the priority to the selection of treasures in the future. All this was enough to illustrate Zhang Han's position in leading Card Liu's heart. However, Zhang Han didn't reply to him and went straight to the kitchen. "Well." Instructor Liu reached out his hand and his expression was extremely complicated. It seemed that he wanted to ask Zhang Han back, but looking at his back, Instructor Liu sighed and lowered his head. But who'd expect that the next moment gave him some hope again. Zhang Han went straight to the refrigerator, opened its door, took out 2 tins of beer and walked back. He came back. Instructor Liu was excited. He looked at Zhang Han and asked in a low voice, "Boss, what do you think of my proposal? I promise, if you agree, we will not affect your life. I heard that you only taught Ahu and others for an hour. You can do the same for us. And think about this, with the identity of Major General, it will be convenient for you to go anywhere." "Well, I will consider what you said." Zhang Han took a look at Instructor Liu and nodded slightly. He replied with a chuckle, "I am going to talk to Zhao Feng now." Oh, then, I will go back first, boss. You must consider it carefully. I am waiting for good news." Instructor Liu grinned. He got up and walked to the door. He was so reluctant to leave the restaurant that he couldn't stop looking back. Fine. In front of the car, Instructor Liu took a look at the plaque of the restaurant and sighed. From Zhang Han's reaction, he felt that probably he wouldn't agree. He thought that the success rate would be more than 70% if he offered those things, but it turned out that he didn't care at all. However, he didn't know that at this time Zhang Han was only concerned about the arrangement of the weekend. After Instructor Liu left, Zhang Han handed 1 beer to Zhao Feng. They clinked and Zhang Han said after taking a sip, "I've thought through the things on Sunday. First, I need a venue. We have a venue, in the former CBD building. I chose a micro-modification drawing last night. 2 or 3 days of work will be enough, but it will take a while to renovate the place above for accommodation, but it won't affect the entry." Zhao Feng nodded. "That venue is okay." Zhang Han nodded and said, "I want to let off some fireworks." "No problem. Although it's not allowed according to the regulations, there is still Instructor Liu. I'll just tell him later. I guess he can directly get us some salutes." Zhao Feng nodded. "I still need." Zhang Han told him all his plans. After that, Zhang Han meditated for a minute. After making sure there was no mistake, he said, "It's almost like this. Take care of everything these 2 days. Don't make mistakes then." "Don't worry, Master. I'll complete the task." Zhao Feng became very serious and replied in a deep voice. This was the first time his master told him that he should not make a mistake. This showed that the master was very concerned about his partner deep in his heart. Thinking of this, Zhao Feng laughed and said, "Master, finally you two are going to be really together." Hearing Zhao Feng's words, Zhang Han smiled and nodded. "Yeah? Great. Congratulations," Zhao Feng said with a smile. "Okay, go to prepare." Zhang Han smiled and waved his hand. His smile made Zhao Feng sigh with emotion. He had never seen anyone who had the ability to make his master smile except Meng Meng and Xian. He knew that this may be the magic of love. "Love, when can I meet my love?" "Maybe very soon." The figure of Liang Mengkai flashed through Zhao Feng's mind. In recent days, Liang Mengkai's attitude towards him had improved a lot and they were like very familiar friends. This was a big step forward. Time always slipped away at the fingertips and it always made people sigh while shaking their heads. Between the heavens and the earth, time passed quickly like a white pony's shadow across a crevice. Soon, it was 8 o'clock on Saturday night. At New Moon Bay, the residential area where Sun Ming was living, that yellow McLaren 625C slowly left the community. Sun Donging drove the car and navigated a flower shop while turning up the music. He went out of the community and when he was waiting for the traffic lights after driving 100 meters on the street, he lowered the sound of the music, took out the phone and made a call. "Hello, little snowflake, my honey, wait for me at the airport for a while. I'll probably arrive in more than half an hour." "Huh? You brought your friends?" "Oh, I am driving a supercar. Do I need to go back and drive the Audi A8L? Someone will pick them up?" "Okay, I'll be right there." After a few days, Sun Donging had led a trend in Down ITV. He was very generous. He didn't stick to trifles and liked to make jokes, which had helped him attract many fans. Except for the first day when he appeared a lot, he was not so active in the following several days, but he did make great arrangements. Yesterday, under the temptation of a kind administrator, Sun Donging promised to think about the live broadcast. It happened that the anchor that he always followed, Little Snowflake, would come to Hong Kong to play for 2 days, so he volunteered to receive her as a host, which made a large number of Little Snowflake's fans yell, "Babe in the Woods." There were also some horny fans, who left such comments in the live broadcast. In the past, Little Snowflake used her big boobs to hold her phone. This time, she went to Hong Kong to meet Dong Huang. I'm afraid that she would use her big boobs to hold his. Regardless of how their fans commented, Sun Donging was preparing to pick her up now. Sun Donging, who called himself a master of love, naturally would send her a bouquet of red roses. So he navigated a flower shop. It was not far away and he arrived there in 5 minutes. In the eyes of passers-by, Sun Donging got off the car handsomely and walked into the flower shop, saying, "Give me a bunch of 999 red roses." "Sold out." "What do you mean?" Sun Donging was a little confused. "Roses have been sold out. Blue roses are also fine." "Sorry, no more roses." "And pink roses?" Sun Donging frowned a little. "Sir, I don't think you understand my words. I mean there are no more roses," the clerk said apologetically. Sun Donging was stunned and didn't say anything. He left the flower shop directly and got on the car to navigate the next flower shop. However, when he arrived at the next shop, "Give me a bunch of 999 roses, any color will do." "Sold out." "Oh." Sun Donging was a bit confused. It was not Valentine's Day today, was it? How come all the roses had been sold out? Then he got on the car again and navigated a large flower shop in New Moon Bay. "I want some roses. I guess there must be some in such a big shop like here." "Oh, sir, I'm sorry, there are no more roses." "What happened?" "I've gone to 3 shops but all the roses have been sold out." Sun Donging asked in confusion. "I don't know either. But a big client came yesterday and bought all the roses at a high price. He was quite generous. Maybe the roses in other stores have also been bought by him." "Damn it, who's that? Why did he buy so many roses? Is he crazy?" Sun Donging muttered and got on the car again. Fine, there was no one left in New Moon Bay. I'd go to Zhakeng District. Sun Donging arrived Zhakeng District soon and went to 2 stores, but the result was the same. Sold out. Sun Donging was mad about this. Which fool had bought all the roses? Sun Donging just couldn't give up and drove to the biggest flower shop in the North Ring area to buy roses. When he arrived at the place, he got the same answer. Sun Donging almost went crazy. "Are you kidding me? There's no one left. Why don't you keep some in the shop?" Sun Donging grabbed his hair and said, "Sir, I'm sorry, the client gave a high price, so there is no one left." The clerk said with a smile, "All right, forget about roses. What are these flowers? Give me a bunch of these." Sun Donging casually pointed to some small yellow flowers on one side. "Okay, sir, please wait a moment." The clerk hurriedly wrapped a large bunch. When he came over, he smiled and said, "Sir, your chrysanthemums." "What?" Sun Donging was stunned. "Ah, these are your chrysanthemums. All right, I know." Sun Donging took out 500 yuan and threw it on the table. He grabbed the bouquet and left. When he got on the car, Sun Donging laughed bitterly and glanced at the chrysanthemums in the assistant driver seat. After thinking about it, his eyes suddenly sparkled and he sneered. "Ha ha, chrysanthemums are also fine." So he drove quickly to the airport and arrived at the agreed location in the parking lot. Sun Donging held the bouquet and looked everywhere, but still didn't find her. There were only a man and two women a few meters away from him. The man was not tall and his skin was a bit dark. Among the two women, one was a little short and fat, but she had a pretty cute face. The other was tall, but her buck teeth made Sun Donging scared. Sun Donging stood for almost 1 minute and suddenly the short, fat woman took the lead and walked towards him. Are you Dong Huang?" The short woman asked. "It's me." "Ah, you're..." Sun Donging stared at her. "Little snowflake." The short, fat woman said 3 words. "Puff, ahem, ahem, ahem." Sun Donging almost spat his blood out and his brain suddenly went blank. Damn it, how did she adjust her camera lens to make her look so different on the internet? Wow, these flowers are so beautiful, are they for me? The short, fat woman asked in surprise. No, no. Sun Donging shook his head immediately. So these are for me? The girl with buck teeth next to her asked. No, they're for him. In a hurry, Sun Donging pointed to the only man present. After hearing this, that man took a look at Sun Donging and then took a look at the flowers in his hand. His face became even darker. "You bought me for chrysanthemums?" Hiss. "Bro. I'm not gay." When hearing that man's words, Sun Donging was stunned and embarrassed. I really couldn't stand it, bro. He felt that he was out of his mind just now to have chosen such a bunch of things instead of roses. Especially when looking at the short and fat woman, Sun Donging's heart was filled with sorrow. God, I wouldn't believe in the internet anymore. Fortunately, they just came here to play and teach him how to live broadcast and interact with fans. This made Sun Donging slightly relieved. Luckily, holding the purpose of hype, he didn't flirt with her, or else, it would be really embarrassing. After thinking about it, Sun Donging felt that the chrysanthemums in his hand were too much for him and he intended to throw them into the trash can nearby. When he was about to take a step, poof! The short, fat woman saw Sun Donging's disappointed face and couldn't help but laugh. She patted Sun Donging's arm and said, "Come on, I'm just kidding, you believe in everything I said. Brother Dong, you're really so funny. Little Snowflake has just gone to the bathroom and she will come out in a few minutes." What? Sun Donging was stunned and looked at her in confusion. Our little Snowflake is a beautiful girl with a sweet voice and high skills. Besides, the video camera has some beautifying effect, but it is not too much. How can she become so short and fat like me? Let me introduce ourselves. My name is Gao Chunksin. You can call me Chubby. She is Xiaoma. This man is called Stone. We are responsible for the live broadcast of Little Snowflake, the short woman said with a smile. Oh, ahem, it's like this. Hello, my name is Sun Donging. You can call me Brother Dong. Immediately Sun Donging breathed a sigh of relief. However, he was still a little worried. If Little Snowflake was also very ugly like them, then he would still be very embarrassed with chrysanthemums in his hand. After thinking about it, Sun Donging felt that he should throw them away. So he said, "Before I came here, I went to 6 or 7 flower shops, both big and small, but all their roses had been sold out. I guess some rich guys are planning something romantic. Since I couldn't buy roses, I just pointed out some flowers casually and bought them. Really? I thought that you bought them on purpose since you wanted to express some of your special hobbies. The girl with buck teeth moved her eyebrows and her expression seemed to tell everyone that we know what you really want. Ahem, it's just a coincidence, pure coincidence, I'd better throw them away. Sun Donging laughed embarrassedly. He took the flowers and went to the trash can on the right. No need, just give her, let's see how she reacts. Hey, look, she is coming. The short woman pointed to one side of the airport gate. Sun Donging stopped to look that way and he recognized Little Small Flake with only a glance of the crowd. Not because she was very beautiful, but because she was holding a selfie stick with a mobile phone on it. It seemed that she was live broadcasting. She was wearing a long-sleeved white shirt and suspenders. There was a large yellow Pikachu pattern on the front side of the shirt. The big boobs under the shirt made the pattern so vivid as if it was alive. Oh, she's good. Sun Donging stared at her face for several seconds. Although she wasn't a gorgeous beauty, she was still pretty and pure, with ponytails and small star studs on the ears. She came all the way from the airport and attracted a lot of people's attention. When she was near them, she waved her hand to Sun Donging and said hello, Brother Dong. Hello. Hello. Sun Donging nodded and said with a smile, are you doing a live broadcast? Yes. My fans heard that I arrived in Hong Kong and you came to pick me up, so they asked me to live broadcast for them. Little Snowflake smiled and replied, well, have you just gone to the bathroom? Sun Donging's mouth trembled slightly. She still broadcast live in the bathroom. That was quite wild. What are you thinking? I just started the live broadcast when I got out. Little Snowflake rolled her eyes and said, oh, that's it. Sun Donging grinned and glanced at the bouquet in his hand, hesitating whether he should send it or not. At this time, Little Snowflake looked at the mobile phone and said, okay, let's take a look at the true appearance of Dong Huang. I'm telling you, he is really a handsome guy. Brother Dong, show your face, huh? Okay. Sun Donging nodded and straightened his collar. His face looked very serious. But soon, he thought that he'd better not be too serious and show his true self, so he squinted his eyes with a faint smirk at the corners of his mouth. He looked just like a playboy from a rich family. Well, look, he's so handsome, right? Little Snowflake turned the camera to Sun Donging. Honey, these flowers are for you. Sun Donging smirked and handed a bouquet of chrysanthemums to her. In an instant, the bullet screens burst out. What the hell, chrysanthemums? Damn it. What a cunning man. Little Snowflake, run. Such a beast in the human face, such a beast. Dong Huang, you really have a special taste. Little Snowflake looked at the screen and reversed the lens to herself. She made a stunning expression with her left hand on her ass and said with amazement, oh my, Brother Dong, how could you do this to me? You. Haha, I don't like to take the usual path. Sun Donging laughed weirdly. Fortunately, it was already at night and no one noticed them, otherwise, the scene here would definitely attract a lot of attention. After hearing the words, Little Snowflake licked her lips with her tongue and said, buddies, do you think I should take this bunch of chrysanthemums? Yes. A barrage of comments flown through. You guys are so bad. Little Snowflake pouted as if she was angry. Sun Donging laughed very casually and said, haha, I'm just kidding. While speaking, he threw the flowers on the trash can and patted his hands. He said, okay, it's late, I'll take you to have a good meal and then we'll have fun. I have already arranged a place for you to stay tonight. Good. Little Snowflake nodded and followed him. When he came to the car, a smug smile flashed through Sun Donging's face. He took out the car key free and easy and pressed it. The headlights of the dazzling McLaren were on. Sun Donging opened the door on side of the co-driver and looked at Little Snowflake. He said, please get on the car. Thank you. Little Snowflake's eyes sparkled and she confirmed that Sun Donging was indeed a rich guy. After getting on the car, She smiled and said, "It seems that our Dong Huang is a super rich guy." At this time, the bullet screens appeared more and more. It could be said that 90% of the people in the live broadcast room envied him very much, and they commented in a sad and envious tone. Sun Donging took a look at the three people behind and said, "Stone, do you need me to call a car for you?" "No need, we've called the car, just tell us the place." The dark-skinned Stone waved his hand again and again. Sun Donging responded and then asked, "Can you drive?" "Yes," Stone replied. "Then let's go to my house first. You can drive another my car, A8, it will be convenient for us to go out later. The address is Haiwan by Yuan, and Street, New Moon Bay. We'll wait for you at the gate of the community." Sun Donging said that and then got in the car. At this time, Little Snowflake was saying goodbye to her fans. "You've all seen it. I'll close the live broadcast for now. Anyway, you'll see Brother Dong's live broadcast soon. At last, let Brother Dong say something to you." She handed over the phone when she was speaking. Sun Donging took the mobile phone. He looked at the camera and said, "Let's call it a day, buddies. They just arrived. As the host, of course, I have to receive them today. I will have a live broadcast at noon tomorrow. See you later." Chapter 282, Xian's Aggressiveness. After finishing speaking, Sun Donging handed the mobile phone back to Little Snowflake, and then she closed the live broadcast. She became quieter when she was not doing the live broadcast. At this point, she just looked through the window and did not say anything. When Sun Donging started the car and drove out of the parking lot, he asked casually, "I don't know your name yet, though I have watched your live broadcast for so long." "My name is Lu Yin, and you can call me Xuanhuan." "Xuanhuan?" Sun Donging was a little surprised, then said, "Your stage name is Little Snowflake, so I thought there would be a word snow in your name. Actually, number. Since I always drink snow beer in parties, I called myself Little Snowflake afterward." Lu Yin answered with a smile. "Oh, you named yourself quite casually?" Sun Donging nodded and chatted with Lu Yin. Then, when he arrived at New Moon Bay, he deliberately made a turn and slowed when as he passed by Zhang Han's restaurant. "Do you see the restaurant over there?" Sun Donging pointed to the restaurant and said, "Meng Meng's leisure restaurant?" Lu Yin grinned and said, "I'll bring you here tomorrow to enjoy delicacies." Sun Donging said with a chuckle, "Oh, here? Is there any specialty there?" Lu Yin asked curiously. In her view, the second-generation rich, like Brother Dong, generally treated guests to high-end restaurants rather than such a small restaurant. "Specialty?" Sun Donging shook his head with a smile and said, "Every grain here is much of a specialty, and I promise that you have never eaten such delicious food before." "How exaggerated it is." "Do you think it is exaggerated?" Sun Donging burst into laughter. He slightly lifted his chin and spared no effort to be as calm as Zhang Han. Then he tried to say in an indifferent tone, "In fact, this restaurant is the best restaurant. For instance, normal eaters only have access to egg fried rice noodle soup, and they need to line up for a long time every day. Besides, only members can enjoy the dishes cooked by the boss personally. Do you know how much should people pay to be a member here? How many? Take a guess." "Well, 10,000 yuan. "Oh, no, 20,000 yuan?" Lu Yin. "Puff, ha, ha. 20,000 yuan?" Sun Donging laughed and said as he shook his head, "It's much below the real price. How much is a membership card?" "Alas, Brother Dong, don't keep me guessing." "Well." Under Lu Yin's gaze, Sun Donging raised his forefinger and said flatly, 10 million yuan. "What? The membership card costs 10 million yuan now. Since one card only can be used by one person, I bought 2 more. I'll bring you to have a taste at noon tomorrow, and you'll know how delicious the dishes are in time. Your friends, however, have to line up as I just possess 3 cards." Sun Donging explained calmly. As a person who always liked to show off, he certainly would not miss the chance to flaunt. Seeing that Lu Yin was stunned, He felt comfortable. While speaking, he drove past the restaurant. In the meantime, the atmosphere in the restaurant was very lively. Not only Zhang Han, Ziyan, and Meng Meng, but also Zif, Zhang Li, Liu King, Liana, and Zhao Feng were here. They were sitting on the first floor, and Zhang Han was playing the piano gracefully. Meng Meng was sitting on the sofa nearby singing the theme song of Frozen, which named Let It Go. Let it go, let it go, can't hold it back anymore. Meng Meng's tender voice made everyone present feel very comfortable. Zhang Li and others were sitting at the round table. At this moment, they really felt pleased with their heads shook to the beat of the song. After Meng Meng finished singing, everyone applauded. Their applause delighted Meng Meng. She raised her hands and put on a happy look. How awesome! Brother Zhang Han is really awesome and plays the piano very well. As for Liana, she looked at Zhang Han with surprise. To be honest, she still liked Zhang Han very much, though she knew that she and Zhang Han could not be together. She, actually, restrained herself at ordinary times on account of Zhang Li's warning, but she could not help expressing her adoration when she saw Zhang Han's talents. At this time, Ziyan, who was sitting on the sofa, looked at Liana questioningly. Seeing her expression, she felt a little uncomfortable. Love was always selfish, and everyone could not ignore his rivals in love. After thinking for a while, Ziyan stood up and walked to Zhang Han. After picking up Meng Meng, she sat on the sofa and glanced at Zhang Han coldly, then said, "I want to listen to a piano piece." "Okay." Zhang Han replied with a chuckle. When he was about to play the piano, Meng Meng, who was in Ziyan's arms, was a little surprised. "You?" Meng Meng looked up at Ziyan and said in a childish tone, "Mama, I want to sing another song." "What song is it?" Ziyan asked with curiosity. The little guy only learned a few songs, and she had finished singing them all. It's. Meng Meng blinked her big clear eyes and pondered for a moment, then said intermittently, "Muddled, I feel muddled. My name is Little Silly, I'm muddled." Meng Meng interpreted the meaning of Little Silly through her expression as well as what she said. Poof! Zhang Li and others burst out laughing. "Meng Meng, I think you a little silly." Zif grinned and said, Number. I'm not little silly, Auntie Fei Fei is. Troublesome Auntie Fei Fei, I don't like you." Meng Meng pouted and said to Zif in great anger. Then she looked at Zhang Han and asked him for help. Papa, Auntie Fei Fei bullies Meng Meng. What if Papa refuses to cook delicious dishes for her next time? Zhang Han said with a smile. Great. Meng Meng nodded obediently. Alas, what a heartless child. Auntie Fei Fei bought you an ice cream yesterday. Now that you dare to complain about me, I won't buy you ice cream tomorrow. Zif curled her mouth and said, "Hey?" Meng Meng was slightly stunned. After turning to look at Zif for a while, she looked at Zhang Han and said quickly, No, Auntie Fei Fei is not troublesome but pleasing. Ha. Seeing Meng Meng's cute appearance, Zhang Han also wanted to tease her, so he said, Number. Papa said that I wouldn't cook for her, I have to keep my word. On hearing what he said, Meng Meng said to her papa anxiously, No, you can't do so, Papa, if you refuse to cook for Auntie Fei Fei, I won't have ice cream tomorrow. I see, so. Zhang Han said slowly. Before he finished his words, Zif interrupted, Meng Meng, if you sing Auntie Fei Fei a song, I will buy you ice cream tomorrow. Great. I'll sing and I can eat ice cream tomorrow. Meng Meng's eyes lit and she cheered with her arms lifted. Catching sight of the little princess's cute appearance, everyone present burst into laughter. Even Ziyan, who seldom smiled, could not help laughing. She touched Meng Meng's little head and chuckled. Well, Papa, I sing the song that I haven't finished just now. Meng Meng reminded while looking at Zhang Han. Well, the song is called I Feel a Little Muddled. Zhang Han smiled and said. Meng Meng learned this song recently, which was the theme song of the cartoon named Boonie Bears. Bonnie Bears was the first cartoon Meng Meng watched after she returned to China, and she liked it very much. Since she watched it every day, she gradually could sing the theme song. That's right, Papa just plays the piano. Meng Meng reached out her small finger to point at the piano. I will play the song first and you can sing along. Zhang Han chuckled, got up and went to the counter with a laptop on it. Then he searched the song and played it in a low voice. After finished playing, Zhang Han walked back to the piano and played it according to his own understanding. Soon, the beautiful melody was heard. The vacation of hibernation just ends. I feel a little muddled. The birds overhead wake up the forest, and the air of spring makes me cozy. Meng Meng did not remember the lyrics at the beginning, but she started singing when she heard the verse she was familiar with. Hey, hey, balmy grass, sweet berry, drink dew and rely on the tree, look up, stand tiptoe, speed up the pace of my growth, whistle, croon a song. Meng Meng's tender voice sounded so sweet. When Xian heard what Meng Meng sang, a myriad of thoughts crowded into her mind. On one hand, she hoped Meng Meng to grow up happily. On the other hand, she wanted Meng Meng to be forever young, for only kids were carefree. Once they grew up, they would have various troubles. This was also a mixed feeling of parents. After thinking for a few seconds, Xian shook her head gently and stopped thinking. After all, she was also a very optimistic person. She glanced at Zhang Han with a hint of affection in her beautiful eyes, then she held Meng Meng's hands with her hands and shook slightly with Meng Meng, accompanied by Meng Meng's singing. It was really great to lead such a life now. Xian was content and she felt fortunate to meet Zhang Han, who was so outstanding. When she sang halfway through, suddenly, two black cars, Jeep Compass, were parked in front of the restaurant. A group of 5 men got out of the car. Among them, a thin man in a suit, who led the way, held a piece of red paper like a certificate. After glancing at the signboard of the restaurant, he spat on the ground in disgust and walked to the restaurant. Huh? Zhao Feng observed them for the first time. Seeing their expressions, Zhao Feng frowned slightly and walked out of the restaurant in a hurry. As the men took 3 or 4 steps forward, Zhao Feng opened the door and walked to them, then said coldly, "The restaurant isn't open now." "Ha, ha, don't you think we are coming to eat? We don't care about the food here." The thin man in a suit sneered, then handed over the paper and said, "This is the gauntlet of the chef LV Zhao in our Aslan restaurant. We've already invited a lot of media reporters as well as celebrities. Hope that you won't lose miserably tomorrow." The man intended pressed the gauntlet to Zhao Feng's chest. However, when he was about to move, Zhao Feng grabbed his wrist immediately and pinched it. The thin man's face suddenly turned red and he cried painfully, "Ouch, it hurts, Fu Kei, loosen my hand, please." At this point, the man's companions wanted to help him, but they felt cold both physically and mentally when they saw Zhao Feng's chill gaze and did not dare to move. When Zhao Feng was an underground gangster at the beginning, his temperament was daunting. Now, as an inward strength warrior, he cherished more suffocating aura. Just like when he came to the restaurant and saw Zhang Han's chill gaze, he also did not dare to act trashly because of the pressure Zhang Han brought. "I'll cut off your tongue if you make dirty words again." Zhao Feng stared coldly at the man in a suit. "It hurts, it hurts, I see, I'm wrong, please loosen my hand." The man in a suit felt so painful that his sweat streamed down his cheeks. At this moment, he did not dare to say anything else but begged for mercy repeatedly. Zhao Feng took the gauntlet with his left hand and loosened his right hand to let the man's wrist go. As soon as his hands were released, the man in a suit covered his left wrist with his right hand. He glanced at his wrist, only to find a bruise on it. At this point, he felt pain and hated Zhao Feng at the same time. "Get out." Zhao Feng frowned and said coldly. If the people in the restaurant were not enjoyed themselves at this time, he would have let them know how much they had to pay for talking dirty. After hearing what he said, the man in a suit did not dare to say anything. They walked back to their cars in dismay and got into the cars. When they were about to leave, the man in a suit, who was sitting in the passenger seat, pointed to Zhao Feng angrily. Judging by his expression, he seemed to say that I would make sure to get my revenge on you. However, for such insignificant people, Zhao Feng ignored them. He stared at the two cars and did not walk back to the restaurant until they left. At this moment, Meng Meng's song had come to an end and everyone present was going to applaud. After a burst of applause, Xian looked at Zhao Feng and said as if she were the hostess, "What's up?" Since the sofa faced the window, she saw what had happened outside just now. After a pause, Zhao Feng said, "It's the men of Aslin restaurant and this is their gauntlet." Gauntlet? Xian's expression became chill and she said coldly, "We'll be punctual for the appointment tomorrow." On hearing Xian's firm words, Zhang Han could not help looking at her. As he got to know Xian, Zhang Han also learned that Xian was not a beautiful woman who always followed others' pieces of advice. She had her own pride, just like a woman of heaven, and her coldness was a concrete reflection. To tell the truth, Zhang Han had seen a lot of chill women in the cultivation world, but each of them was a famous saint, or a daughter of great power, or a leader of a sect. They had a lot of followers and was unlikely to be together with their beloved ones. However, no matter how powerful the woman was, she would be conquered by a more formidable man. There were lots of sad and beautiful love stories in the cultivation world. However, martial artists just paid their attention to cultivation and were not concerned about other matters. As for Xian, Zhang Han was more satisfied with her, such as her character. She could be chill, be charming, and could be delicate. She was indeed an able stunner, and Zhang Han gradually fell in love with her. Xian glared at Zhang Han when she found Zhang Han staring at her, then said, "What are you looking at? You are so good-tempered that you don't say anything even if they bully you. Anyway, we'll go over to teach them a lesson tomorrow." The instant Xian finished speaking, Zhao Feng's eyelids trembled a few times. Is Master good-tempered? Oh, my God, are you kidding me? Master's wife, you're so naive that you only see the Master's appearance. In fact, a Master is really a fierce man. Zhao Feng was speechless. If people from underground forces heard Xian's words, they would have been dumbfounded. In his view, in the face of the Master's family, the Master was like a tiger, who unloaded his crown and became a docile cat. However, when he was outside, he would show his sharp fangs inadvertently, which chilled others. Hearing what Xian said, Zhang Li and other people present froze. Even Meng Meng also blinked her big eyes and kept out of mischief. "What happened, elder sister Yan?" Zif asked curiously. "Since our restaurant was reported on the food program last time, the chef in Aslan restaurant is jealous. He invited Zhang Han to a cooking competition, but Zhang Han did not keep the appointment the first time. Since then, they were engaged in advertising and also asked reporters to interview them. They were so arrogant that they had intended to ignore us." Xian simply told them what had happened, then gave Zhang Han an angry stare. "What?" Zhang Li raised her eyebrows. She looked at Zhang Han and said, "Who are they? They actually came here to provoke us. We have to keep the appointment." "Brother, what's wrong with you? If they provoked you at the beginning in Shangjing, you would have broken their legs." "That's right. It's so overconfident for them to compete with my brother-in-law in cooking." Zif twisted her mouth. "The dishes cooked by brother Zhang Han are the best that I have ever eaten. They're so arrogant and even asked reporters to interview. If I were you, I would lose my temper." Liu King snorted. "That's too irritating, brother Zhang Han. I know 2 media reporters and they're my friends. I can ask them to help us tomorrow." Li Anna said in anger. Then she took out her mobile phone to contact her friend through WeChat. Looking at those who were excited, Zhang Han felt funny. He did not care about the people who provoked him, but the group of people, led by Xian, wanted him to accept the challenge. It seemed that that insignificant person was doomed to accept his tragic destiny. "Zhao Feng, show me the gauntlet." Xian said to Zhao Feng. "Okay." Zhao Feng handed the gauntlet to Xian. At 10 o'clock on Sunday, in the Aslan restaurant, we can make preparations after breakfast and set off at 9:40. Xian said. After thinking for a while, Zhang Han nodded and said, well, it's up to you. Xian was quite satisfied with Zhang Han's words. She glanced at Zhang Han with her beautiful eyes, compressed her mouth and did not say anything. Although she did not speak, her eyes seemed to say, that's what you should do, you should listen to me. In Xian's mind, those who were afraid of their wives actually loved their wives. In fact, she did not like the men who always followed male chauvinism. Male chauvinism was acceptable when men were outside, but they should treat their wives well at home. Moreover, the wives, who were sensible, would not embarrass but respect their husbands when they were outside. It could be understood if they lost their temper occasionally. In addition, as a husband, you should put up with your wife's bad temper. If she acted capriciously in the face of others, she was likely to fall in love with another man. At this moment, Xian blinked her big eyes all of a sudden and retorted in her mind, Bah, 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 Zhang Han isn't my husband and I'm not his wife. In fact, sometimes, things would get worse because of envy and dissatisfaction, just like the matter concerning Aslan restaurant. However, once the two parties competed with each other, one of them was destined to lose. Obviously, this time, the chef of Aslan restaurant, Lu Suchou, who was a disciple of one of the 4 master chefs in Hong Kong, was doomed to lose. During this period, Zhao Feng's mobile phone suddenly rang. It was Xiong who called him, so Zhao Feng walked to the back to pick up the phone. Hello, Brother Feng, something is wrong in Ocean Park. What's wrong? The Sunday's tickets were stopped selling online a few days ago, but they started to be sold again this morning. I just called him 3 times. The first time he did not answer the phone, the second time he hung up, and the third time he turned off his phone. What? Zhao Feng's face changed. Master had specially required him to complete everything. However, something was out of control now. Tomorrow was birthday of my master's wife, but something was out of control tonight. Zhao Feng's eyes gradually became cold, and he said firmly, find his position immediately. Now, Chapter 283, Come to find Zhang Hongbo. Hearing his words, Xiong became anxious. Not to mention how powerful Zhao Feng was now. Every time when he spoke in such a firm tone, he would have created much of a stir. Otherwise, how did he get his nickname Crazy? Xiong, therefore, replied in a hurry, I'll check it now, please give me half an hour. Fine. Zhao Feng answered and hung up the phone. He took a deep breath and exhaled slowly to relieve his irritation. After calming down, he walked back to the round table and sat down. The gauntlet only affected their mood for a few minutes. At first, they felt a little angry, but then they cheered up as they realized that they were to defeat their opponent in this competition. At this moment, everyone present was offering pieces of advice and thought about how to punish the arrogant man. After they talked for less than 2 minutes, Meng became active again. She wanted to sing another song, but Xian did not allow her to do so. Meng had sung 5 songs, and it did harm to her throat if she sang too many songs at one time. So, Xian asked Zhang Han to play Melody of the Night, and everyone enjoyed their leisure time here. In the meantime, Bay Mansion on Ann Street in New Moon Bay, Sun Dongying's McLaren was quietly parked in front of the gate of this community. Seeing the environment inside the district, Lu Yin sighed with emotions repeatedly. This district, with 8 high-rises in it, looks very upscale. Besides, since each of them is spaced far apart and its screen coverage ratio is really high, I guess the house price is not low. The price of the houses in New Moon Bay is always the highest in Hong Kong. It costs about 300,000 to 400,000 yuan per square meter for high-rises. I don't know the details. In fact, rich people generally live in half-mountain mansions, and it costs over 1 million yuan per square meter. Because my father's former company developed slowly, he bought an apartment in a high-rise. Sun Donging said calmly. It's so expensive. Lu Yin stuck out her tongue, curled her lips and said, I even can't afford a small bathroom here by virtue of my current deposit. Ha, ha, the houses are always expensive here, and the prices of houses in other districts are also high. Since there were few land resources in Hong Kong, the piece of land is worth a lot. They have arrived. Let's get out of the car and come to meet them. While speaking, Sun Donging glanced at the rear-view mirror. Okay. Lu Yin and Sun Donging got out of the car. A black Buick, which had been booked by Stone before, slowly approached them. The car stopped at the roadside, and then Stone, Chubby and Xiaomai got out of it. Let's go to pick up the car first. I rented a villa and we can go there after having supper. Sun Donging said with a smile. After Sun Donging opened the gate with his entrance card, they walked into the high-rise. They passed by the cell gate and stopped in front of the elevator. After thinking for a while, Sun Donging said, since you are here, why don't you visit my home? Well, Lu Yin responded with a smile. She was curious about Sun Donging's apartment. Therefore, they went upstairs. There were 32 floors altogether and Sun Donging's apartment was on the 22nd floor. He took out the key to open the door. On entering the apartment, others gasped in admiration. Wow, your apartment is so big. Lu Yin's eyes lit up. A large living room came into view first. The living room was a rectangle, and at the end of it decorated a semicircular French window with a strong degree of lighting. There were a lot of furnishings in the living room, such as a sofa, a tea table, a television, a TV cabinet, background wall, and 2 wooden shelves with various antiques on them. Moreover, there were several potted plants by the window and some other ornaments. The living room looked ample and uncluttered on account of all these decorations. Wear these slippers. Sun Donging took out 5 pairs of disposable slippers. After Lu Yin and others changed their shoes, they walked around the living room and were totally intoxicated with the scenery of New Moon Bay out of the window. It's so beautiful. Chubby sighed with emotions repeatedly. It will be more spectacular at sunrise and sunset. Sun Donging said with a smile. How many square meters is your apartment? Lu Yin asked curiously. 170 square meters with 3 rooms, 2 halls, and 2 bathrooms. Let me show you around my apartment. So Sun Donging took them to visit the rooms. This is my bedroom, and there is a private bathroom in it. It is my parents' bedroom. There is a vacant bedroom. Here is the kitchen, inside which is the dining room. The dining room was in the north of the room and people could see the night scene of New Moon Bay through the window. Do you see the tall building? Sun Donging said as he pointed to the building covered with glass in the distance. It's the former CBD building. I heard that it was sold recently. The villa I rented, with a private pool, is located on a low hill nearby. By the way, do you like to play with others? What if I call my friends to come here later? Well, the more the merrier, Brother Dong. Why don't you invite other beautiful ladies? I haven't seen young models since I was a child. Stone, with black skin, took the opportunity to say, Hey, what do you mean, Stone? You're protecting us, so how do you still think of young models? Xiaomai patted him on the arm. She glanced at Sun Donging, who was standing behind her, gave a wide smile and said, Brother Dong, is there any handsome guy? You can invite some handsome guys. Ah? Sun Donging was shocked and said, You really know how to enjoy yourself. I'm just kidding, I'm just kidding. Stone grinned. That's great. I'll call my friends to come later. By the way, what kind of wine do you like to drink? My dad has a few bottles of treasured liquor here. Sun Donging asked generously. Whatever. Lu Yin replied. I'll take a few bottles of Lafite. Sun Donging said casually, Let's go to the living room to have a rest for a while, and I'm going to take some fruit. They came to the living room. Then Sun Donging took some fruit and put it on the tea table. Brother Dong, are you going to do the live broadcast at noon tomorrow? When Lu Yin took the orange from Sun Donging, she asked, Yeah, We can enjoy ourselves in the villa at night, and I'll do the live broadcast after I get up tomorrow." When Stone heard what he said, his face changed and he said, "Brother Dong, I think it is not bad to do the live broadcast in your apartment, for it was well decorated. Besides, everyone can see the scenery while standing in front of the window, and they will definitely know that the apartment is worth a lot since it is so large, which will improve your level. After we go downstairs, you drive the super sports car, while we drive other luxury cars, to go to dinner. In the afternoon, we can stroll on the beach, or go somewhere to enjoy ourselves. Then we can go to the villa at night. I'm sure that this schedule will attract fans' attention." "Really?" Sun Donging froze. "You'd better follow his advice." Lu Yin smiled and said, "He specializes in designing tour routes, and helped me design the route for my outdoor live broadcasts and select the accommodation. He does know the ropes." "Oh, I see." After pondering for a moment, Sun Donging thought it was a good proposal. In addition, he had to figure out how to do the live broadcast tonight, so he said, "Well, just rest in my apartment today. The two ladies can live in my bedroom. Stone, you can live in the guest room, and I'll live in my parents' bedroom. I have new sheets and covers. Now, I'll take you to have supper. We're at your service, host," Lu Yin said with a smile. They went downstairs and came to the underground parking lot first. Then Sun Donging and Lu Yin got into the sports car, while others got into the Audi A8L, driving to an upscale Western restaurant. After more than 10 minutes, they reached the destination. Since all the parking plots were occupied, Sun Donging parked the car in the parking lot of the hotel nearby. When they got out of the car and walked to the restaurant, suddenly, 5 black Mercedes-Benz S600 stopped not far away, accompanied by a burst of the creaky sound of doors. About 12 or 13 men in black suits walked out of the cars. It was obvious that they had a strong background. Lu Yin and her companions looked at them with curiosity. "Hey?" Sun Donging snorted. He took 2 steps forward and said in a loud voice, "Brother Hu." "Huh?" Hu turned to look at him. Finding that it was Sun Donging, he nodded. "What a coincidence, Brother Hu. I'm going to entertain my friends. Do you want to have dinner with us?" Sun Donging said with a smile. "No, thanks. We still have something to do. Just enjoy yourself." After giving him a response, Hu rushed into the hotel. Brother Dong, who are they? They look so scary," Chubby asked, hiding behind Sun Donging. In fact, other people also wanted to ask him this question, so they all waited for Sun Donging's answer while looking at him. "They?" Sun Donging thought for a while and gave them a wide smile, then said, "They're my buddies, who were the underground gangsters before and were the superiors of Forever Harmony Association, which was the most powerful force in Southern District, but now, they're doing business, followed by one of our elder brothers. I'm not talking horse. They're really formidable and of great influence in Southern District, therefore, you'll have a good time. I carry weight here." Great, Brother Dong, you're so awesome," Xiaomai said repeatedly. "Brother Dong is awesome and really cool." Stone gave a thumbs up to Sun Donging. Well, let's go to have dinner first, and I'll take you to some amazing places if I have the chance later." Sun Donging waved his hand in a free and easy way, then took the lead to the Western restaurant nearby. At this moment, inside Meng Meng's leisure restaurant, everyone was sitting on the sofa and chatting with each other. As for Zhao Feng, he sat in the chair by the bed. After answering a phone, he got up and walked to Zhang Han, then said, "Boss, I should go back as I have something to deal with." "Okay." Zhao Feng walked out of the restaurant and got into the black Land Rover. When he stepped on the gas pedal, his face fell. He drove at a high speed and arrived at the destination in 5 minutes. After stopping his car in front of the hotel, Zhao Feng walked in. At this moment, Hu, Xuyong, and their men were sitting in the rest area in the bar. Catching sight of Zhao Feng, Xuyong walked to him and said, "Zhang Hongbo is at this hotel with a girl, but we don't know which room he is in. Well. Zhao Feng nodded and went to the bar directly. He took out the black certificate from his pocket and showed it to the staff, then said in a cold tone, "Tell me which room Zhang Hongbo lives in." Okay, sir, please wait for a moment." On seeing the certificate, the staff was completely shocked. Special Forces? She hurriedly called the manager. After seeing the certificate, the manager checked Zhang Hongbo's room number without any hesitation. "He's in the presidential set on the 27th floor. The manager replied. "Show us the way." Zhao Feng said flatly. "Okay." The manager responded hastily and took the lead to the elevator. More than 10 people went into the 2 elevators and arrived on the 27th floor. Then the manager opened the door with a spare door card. After entering the room, everyone seemed to hear the dissolute breaths from the master bedroom. What were they doing? It was obvious. Chapter 284, Everything is ready. The sound was like continuous mountains. The manager, who was standing behind them, felt a little embarrassed. Meanwhile, he felt pitiful for the people inside. They would apparently get a fright as a group of people rushed in when they were having the best time. Zhao Feng sneered and walked to the bedroom. The 2 of them were still in the war, and totally did not notice that a group of people was standing at the door. At this point, Ahu twisted his mouth. After taking a deep breath, he shouted loudly, "Hey! Ah! Ah!" 2 screams came from the bed. The 2 of them immediately turned to look at the door, and they turned pale with fear as they saw the group of people. Ah! That delicate woman hurriedly hid her body in the quilt. She was so scared that did not dare to show her head, for she thought this group of people was sent by Zhang Hongbo's wife to catch them in bed. On remembering the horrors of those who were beaten badly because they had an affair with married men on the internet, she could not help shaking with fear. As for Zhang Hongbo, he was terribly frightened. He half knelt on the bed, staring at the door blankly. "Put on your clothes and get out," Zhao Feng said coldly. Then he walked to the hall and sat on the sofa. Fu Kei. At this moment, after Zhang Hongbo came to his sense, the anger in his heart rose into his brain in an instant. He swore and began to wear clothes. In the face of so many people, he felt somewhat scared. However, after he realized that they were led by Zhao Feng, he calmed down. He firmly believed that they did not dare to beat him here since the hotel manager was standing behind and there were so many monitors in the hotel, let alone he lived in a society ruled by law. Furthermore, as the administrator of the amusement park, he was on good terms with superiors. Actually, every director of the amusement park was distinguished, and the underground gangsters obviously could not match them. So, Zhang Hongbo blushed and put on his clothes, panting. Then he strode to the living room. The next moment, he frowned and looked at Zhao Feng with great dissatisfaction. But for that he dreaded him, he would have abused him. "Mr. Zhao, could you give me an explanation now?" Zhang Hongbo asked after taking a deep breath. "Oh?" Hearing what he said, Zhao Feng wanted to laugh. Does he actually want an explanation? Xuanhuan did not say anything but took 2 steps forward and waved his hand. Pa. He slapped Zhang Hongbo in the face twice. "You are so arrogant, why didn't you answer the phone?" Xuanhuan sneered and punched Zhang Hongbo in the stomach, arching his body. "Do you think that I can't find you once you turn off your phone?" Xuanhuan grabbed Zhang Hongbo's collar and hit him with his knee. Although he did not exert all his strength, Zhang Hongbo was too weak to bear this blow. Puff, ahem. Zhang Hongbo spat all over the ground and kept retching. If Xuanhuan did not hold his collar, he would have fallen to the ground. Xuanhuan did not hit him again, for he worried that he probably would stun him. Therefore, he dragged Zhang Hongbo in front of Zhao Feng, who was sitting on the sofa. As soon as he let go, Zhang Hongbo half knelt on the ground, covering his stomach painfully. Zhao Feng leaned forward, grabbed Zhang Hongbo's collar to raise his head with his right hand. "Mr. Zhang, could you give me an explanation now?" Zhao Feng asked the same question Zhang Hongbo had asked before. You are breaking the law, and I have the right to sue you. You bastards will go to jail." Zhang Hongbo blushed and said, out of breath. Zhao Feng's eyes became cold and he moved all of a sudden. He grabbed Zhang Hongbo's collar to rotate him and threw him on the tea table in front of him. Bang! The whole glass-made tea table was crushed, and Zhang Hongbo was at a loss, completely dumbfounded. Not only him, but also the manager nearby also got a fright and looked at Zhao Feng in horror. She did not know if this man was to arrest someone or simply to fight someone. To everyone's amusement, the door of the master bedroom was suddenly closed and the sound of locking the door was heard, though they made a lot of noises in the living room. Then Zhao Feng lifted Zhang Hongbo and threw him aside. He sat on the sofa, feeling a little annoyed, and took out a box of cigarettes from his pocket. He lit one and took a puff. Whoosh! After exhaling a long column of smoke, Zhao Feng stared at Zhang Hongbo and said, "Now, if you say any nonsense, I'll break your legs. Tell me what the hell wrong is with the tickets of the amusement park?" I. Zhang Hongbo was really scared at this time. He felt very painful, but he did not dare to ignore Zhao Feng's question. Therefore, he twisted his mouth and said, "I tried my best. Since I'm not a core manager, I can't do anything as long as the superiors stop me. However, I have put off the launch day till today. The people who buy the tickets will be much fewer than usual, as the tickets were accessible to visitors for only one day. In the worst case, I can draw half of your money back." "Draw my money back? Do you think I am short of money?" Zhao Feng became angry. He stood up and said, "What did you promise when you charged me? What did I tell you? Why didn't you inform me, since you cannot complete what you promised?" "Because of your poor greed." Zhao Feng clenched his fists, eagerly intending to punch him to death. But he did not take any action, for he knew that even if he killed this greedy guy, he could not change the fact that Zhang Hongbo failed to complete what he had promised before. "What should I do?" Zhao Feng was really upset. After taking the final puff, he directly threw the cigarette butt directly and took out another cigarette to puff it. Then he dropped on the sofa and kept smoking. "If I fail to finish the master's task tomorrow and make a mistake on such an important day, I'll totally lose face." As Zhao Feng was in silence, the whole room became quiet. Zhang Hongbo sat on the ground and did not dare to make any noises, while the manager was completely stunned nearby. Xuyong, Ahu, and others were somewhat worried. Seeing Brother Feng's expression, they knew that Brother Feng was definitely in a bad mood. Zhang Hongbo. After finishing smoking this cigarette, Zhao Feng looked at Zhang Hongbo, although he said in an extremely flat tone, as if he were telling a story which had nothing to do with him. His words did shock others. "No matter what you do, I need to get the desired results tomorrow, otherwise you will regret coming to this world." As soon as he finished speaking, Zhang Hongbo trembled. He could obviously feel the chillness hearing what Zhao Feng said. At this moment, he only felt like falling into an ice cave, and he was extremely desperate. "Mr. Zhao, oh, no, Brother Zhao, Elder Brother Zhao," Zhang Hongbo said in a panic, "I really spared no efforts, but I can only postpone it until this morning. What if I guide you in person tomorrow? You don't have to line up, and I'll arrange everything. Is that okay? Moreover, I'll refund you 7 million yuan. Can't you do it?" Zhao Feng grinned, although he smiled. His expression was so cold. He whispered, "Since you can't keep your promise, I won't say any nonsense. Xuyong, take him away." "Yes." Xuyong nodded and stepped forward to lift Zhang Hongbo. Zhang Hongbo was thoroughly panicked this time. He kept twisting his body but failed to break away. He shouted, "You're breaking the law. I'll sue you. I'll call the police." "Manager, call the police hurriedly. Help me, they are a group of thugs. Let me go, you bastards." At this time, the manager was truly frightened. He glanced at Zhao Feng and believed that he was an underground gangster rather than a soldier. Is his certificate fake? Suddenly, the manager's heart gave a great leap, and he had a bold idea in his mind. The man's certificate is fake, and they are all outlaws. Am I helping the criminals now? Hiss. The manager thought for a while and his face turned pale. At this point, Xuanhuan raised his left hand as he thought that Zhang Hongbo was too noisy. Bang, bang. Zhang Hongbo became quiet after he was hit by Xuanhuan several times. Seeing what was happening, the manager shook in terror. What a terrible thing. He was too desperate to figure out the reason why he was involved in this matter. Fortunately, the thing did not get worse as he expected. Ding! Zhao Feng's mobile phone suddenly rang, which stopped people who were taking action. Zhao Feng took out his phone to take a look. After catching sight of the telephone number, he froze. He picked up the phone. Hello. Ha, younger brother Zhao, I'm Liu Qingfeng. Chairman Liu, what can I do for you? Zhao Feng asked. I'll return to Linhai at noon tomorrow and want to visit Mr. Zhang before leaving. I don't know if Mr. Zhang will be free. Hearing what he said, Zhao Feng was lost in thought. While he was thinking, his eyes suddenly brightened and he quickly asked. Chairman Liu, do you know the superiors of Ocean Park? Ocean Park? Yes, what can I do for you? Tell me directly. Liu Qingfeng said without hesitation. I originally told a senior of the Ocean Park that I wanted to rent the park for a day, and he told me that Sunday was available. However, something is out of control. In fact, tomorrow will be a very important day for my boss and I don't know what to do now. Can you help me, Chairman Liu? I can pay some price. Zhao Feng said. Rent it for one day? Well, it's just a piece of cake. As a major shareholder, I can do it only with a call. Whoosh. Zhao Feng put on a delighted face and let out a long breath. He felt completely relaxed and said, thank you very much, Chairman Liu. You do help me a lot. Hey, you don't need to be so polite, for we're friends. Who did you ask to help you? Why didn't he get such a trivial thing done since he is a senior? His name is Zhang Hongbo, who charged me 12 million yuan and did not inform me that he could not keep his promise. Besides, I think this money can count as the amusement park's revenue. What do you think, Chairman Liu? Zhao Feng glanced at Zhang Hongbo, who was lifted by Xuanhuan, and his eyes narrowed. He did not intend to beat Zhang Hongbo, but he would not let Zhang Hongbo get the money. Zhang Hongbo, well, I see. When is a good time for me to visit Mr. Zhang? I want to entertain Mr. Zhang. My boss will be busy tomorrow. It will be nearly 9 o'clock after breakfast, and he will go to Aslan restaurant after cleaning up the restaurant. At 11 o'clock, he will go back to the restaurant for lunch. Then he will go to the amusement park and won't be free until night. Zhao Feng simply told him Zhang Han's schedule and said, Chairman Liu, if you want to visit my boss, you should come at about 11 o'clock in the evening. Chapter 285, Do It in Person. Why did you go to Aslan restaurant? Liu Qingfeng asked directly. Going to the restaurant at 9 o'clock in the morning? Apparently, it wasn't for a meal. Their chef wants to challenge my boss cooking. Who's so bold? Liu Qingfeng asked straightforwardly. Aslan restaurant, huh? Let me give them a call. No need, we've arranged everything, Zhao Feng replied quickly. His master's wife, Zhang Li and Zif were all very concerned about this matter. They were planning to abuse them tomorrow. If Chairman Liu helped them deal with this now, Zhao Feng thought all of them would blame him for doing so. Alright, when will it start? I will go straight there tomorrow. 10 o'clock. I know, alright, I'll ask the person in charge of the amusement park to call you back. Liu Qingfeng hung up the phone after telling him. Zhao Feng took back the phone and chuckled. Sometimes, with a friend like Liu Qingfeng, it was really convenient for them to do anything. This was the importance of social status. Some things seemed to be very difficult for a lot of people, but in some people's eyes, they were just a piece of cake. With Liu Qingfeng's help this time, the problem of the amusement park was solved. Now everything was ready and they all needed to wait for tomorrow. However, Zhao Feng believed that it wouldn't take a long time for him to become a person like Liu Qingfeng. Oh no, a person that would surpass Liu Qingfeng. Now that things had been resolved, Zhao Feng was completely relieved. Finally, he took a look at Zhang Hongbo and said, You can be greedy, but only if you have that ability. After that, Zhao Feng took the lead and walked out. Xuyong released Zhang Hongbo and went out after a stare at him. After the group went out, the lobby manager exhaled a long breath. "You're the lobby manager. How could you bring those people to open my door? You're doing great. I'll report to you. I'll complain. I'll sue you, you bastard." Zhang Hongbo glared at him with his red eyes and cursed. "What did you say?" The lobby manager was stunned and then he got angry. His face became darker and then he said calmly, "Just go to complain, but let me remind you first, those people are all officials. They're from regular troops." "Humphrey, sleeping with your mistress at the hotel, weren't you afraid of being caught?" After finishing his words, he stepped out of the room and secretly cursed him. This big fool, it served him right. Zhao Feng and his men went in the elevator. When they came over, Zhao Feng's face was a bit gloomy. He was so depressed that he even smoked 2 cigarettes. Now that the problem had been resolved, a relaxed smile appeared on Zhao Feng's face. "Brother Feng." Who looked at Zhao Feng with a smile and said, "It's been a long time since I've seen you so upset." "Yeah, I haven't been so upset for a long time." Zhao Feng shook his head slightly and said, "Tomorrow is such an important day. If I screw it up, I'll be really embarrassed, especially since we've been preparing for it for days. It's good to have someone to help us this time." In short, everyone's clear about tomorrow's schedule. Instructor Liu had got all kinds of equipment. We must cooperate perfectly in the evening to make the boss feel satisfied and give a surprise to his wife. "Ha ha, don't worry, Brother Feng." Xuyong laughed twice and said, "We've made so many preparations, even if there is only a single part, it'll be very romantic. With so many programs together, I believe no woman will dislike it." "That's right, everyone must be extremely careful tomorrow. You all know that the boss cares about very few people or things, but this time, he has planned this for several days, so we have to make it perfect." "Oh, Xuyong, have you prepared flour and oven?" Zhao Feng said. "Yes. They're in the lobby on the first floor of the company," Xuyong replied. "Okay." Zhao Feng glanced at the watch and said, "It's almost 11 o'clock and the boss will arrive in an hour or so. Let's go back and prepare." The elevator arrived on the first floor and the group of people went towards the gate. This attracted the attention of the receptionists at the front desk. They all felt that these people were so handsome. That was the special forces. They'd never expect that they'd see their secret actions today. In the eyes of other people, this group left the hotel. At this time, the lobby manager also followed them down here. He went to the front desk and looked at the receptionists, saying, "They just left." "Yeah, the way they walk and their expression are so cool. They're handsome." "Manager, what mission did they come here for?" Hearing this question, the manager thought for a while and then spoke something that made the receptionists stunned. "To catch adultery in the act." Zhao Feng and others walked out of the hotel. When they were about to get on the cars, Zhao Feng's cell phone rang. "Instructor, I've got things. You come over and see how we should put them," Instructor Liu said directly. "Okay, I will go back in about 10 minutes. After Zhao Feng finished speaking, he hung up. "Go back first." Zhao Feng opened the front door of the car which took the lead and sat in the passenger seat. A few cars in a row left quickly. When they arrived at the former CBD building, the building had been slightly modified. The first floor to the 7th floor was already available and the logistics service personnel sent by Liu Qingfeng had also come over. The modification was simply to smash some walls on the 2nd and 3rd floor, decorate with ready-made things, and then put various training equipment. Only the hotel-style accommodation was still under construction. They were not afraid of disturbing the people, so they were working 24 hours to make it faster. The decoration and the process of filling in the furniture would be completed in about 7 days. The materials used were all high-end brands, plus the air purification system. Professional designers told them to observe for 2 days after the renovation. They could move in if there wasn't much formaldehyde or other harmful substances. However, the decoration still cost more than 30 million with the help of Liu Qingfeng, or else the market price would be no less than 50 million. The two-story residential area were all luxurious suites of different styles. It had been constructed for 3 days till now and it would be completed in a few days. The efficiency was evident. As for the 5-story low-rise building next to it, it was also under construction. The first floor would be changed to a bar, the second floor of a restaurant, and the third floor and the fourth floor would be functional rooms as those in clubs. The fifth floor would be reserved for the office area. Although there were not many floors, the area was not small and the planned parts were quite enough. The amount of work here was relatively large, so it was expected to cost a long time. It would take at least 1 month to complete the reconstruction. After 12 minutes drive, they returned to the company. Cars were stopped at the parking lot on the left side of the square inches front of the main building. After getting out of the cars, people saw that a row of large salutes was put in front of the building. At first glance, there were 40 or 50 salutes. Instructor Liu was casually sitting on the wheel of a salute and smoking. "Instructor, where have you got so many salutes?" All the people got off the cars and went over. Then Zhao Feng asked him. Originally, he expected there would be 20 salutes. He didn't expect the instructors to get much more. "Here are 50 salutes and 50 more will be sent over in half an hour." Instructor Liu patted the barrel and smiled. "Do we need so many?" Zhao Feng found it both funny and annoying. "Hey, of course, why not?" Instructor Liu stood up and said, "Mr. Zhang's business must be done perfectly. You think about it, 100 salutes being set off at the same time, what a scene." "Well." Zhao Feng's eyes sparkled and he said with a chuckle, "It will illuminate the entire New Moon Bay." "That's right." Instructor Liu laughed for a while, and then he coughed and said, "I have told Director Dong and we will arrange a lot of traffic police and firefighting trucks, so let's play to our heart's content tomorrow. But, well, ahem, you must tell Mr. Zhang about this, speak some good words for me, maybe when he is happy, he will directly agree with what I said." "No problem." Zhao Feng nodded with a smile. "Then see how these salutes should be placed." Instructor Liu waved his hand. 100 in total, then 50 at each side. "Ahu, you push these to the left, and when the next bunch arrives, push them to the right," Zhao Feng ordered. So Ahu and others began to push the salutes. At this moment, inside Meng Meng's leisure restaurant, Zhang Han was lying in the pink bed of the master bedroom, telling the story for his sleepy wife and daughter. After about 10 minutes or less, Meng Meng fell asleep, and another 10 minutes later, Xian fell asleep soundly. Zhang Han stopped telling the story. He was lying next to Meng Meng, holding his head with his left hand and quietly watching the two beauties. With a daughter and a wife, that was home. Zhang Han felt very warm now. Even he himself didn't realize that his state of mind had had some changes. He didn't want to a king who could conquer the whole land, nor did he want to stand on the top of the mountains, overlooking the entire world. Even the uncomfortable feeling when he couldn't look for treasures gradually disappeared. There was only one word in his heart, home. He didn't want to fight nor win. What he only wanted was to guard his home. He also had the same feeling as others, that was, a sense of responsibility. He wanted his daughter to grow up happily and his family to be carefree. This was Zhang Han's motivation for moving forward, which was even greater than his motivation for improvement in Cultivation World. It was like an attitude. Although he didn't want to dispute, for the sake of his home, he would sweep away some obstacles. Although he didn't want to be the king, he would personally conquer a piece of land for his family. After watching for a few minutes, Zhang Han gently got up and put Meng Meng in the cot. He walked to the door, turned his head and looked at Xian, with a soft smile in his eyes. Gently closing the door, Zhang Han left the restaurant and drove to the company. It was late at night, but the company's lobby on the first floor was full of lights and there were dozens of people standing there. Zhang Han parked the car aside, got off and went inside. Boss. Boss. Zhao Feng and others gathered together. What made Zhang Han feel interesting was that Instructor Liu was just like an obedient baby, standing next to Zhao Feng and greeting him. Is everything ready? Zhang Han nodded while asking. Everything is ready, over there. Zhao Feng pointed to the direction of the original service desk on the right. There were 2 large chopping boards over there, with a bag of flour, a pot of eggs and a king-size oven on them. Obviously, Zhang Han was planning to make a birthday cake by himself. Chapter 286, Sunday was coming. Zhang Han walked over and looked at the ingredients. Then he went to the bathroom to wash his hands and came back to stand in front of the chopping boards to get ready. Looking up and seeing that Zhao Feng and dozens of people were standing in the front, Zhang Han said, "It will take a long time to make a cake. It is not early. You should take a rest." "Xuyong, take them back to rest," Zhao Feng said to Xuyong after hearing the words. "Okay." Xuyong was just about to speak. Ahu said, "Don't talk about that, boss. We want to see you making cakes. We've waited for a long time." "Yes, boss. We are not sleepy. We'll just stay here with you. We also want to see what kind of cake boss can make. So romantic. We want to see." 2 women chuckled while speaking. Zhang Han nodded and no longer cared about them. When he was about to do it, Instructor Liu, who had been very silent, asked, "Boss, do you want me to help you?" After he said that, Zhao Feng and others turned to look at him immediately. The meaning of the expression in their eyes was very obvious. It was better to directly buy one if he needed others' help. "Ahem, I mean that I can do some preparation work. I can be your assistant." Now Instructor Liu realized it and scratched his head embarrassedly. "No need, I will do it by myself." Zhang Han chuckled and started working. The process of making a cake was not complicated. Zhang Han took a steel basin, poured 2 bottles of boiled milk in it and then added a little corn oil. He placed the sugar on one side. Because the cake he wanted to make was relatively big, which was expected to be about 30 inches, so he needed many ingredients. The second step, he broke the eggs, put the yolks in one basin and the egg whites in another basin. He took the blender and made the egg whites into bubbles. Then he added the fine sugar, stirred for a while, and the cream was made. Zhang Han poured the egg yolks into the pot which was containing the milk and stirred well. Then he took a bag of flour, poured in a half pot, stirred well, added a little cream, and stirred again. And then he took 3 30-inch molds, poured the mixture in them, and put them in the preheated oven. After these steps, 3 yellow round cakes had been placed on the chopping board after an hour. Zhang Han took the plastic plate for the cake, put the first layer of cake on it, and then put a layer of cream. Then he put the second layer of cake on it, put a layer of cream again, and then put the third layer of cake on it. In this way, a cylindrical cake was produced, but this was not the shape that Zhang Han wanted. Zhang Han took a long knife especially for cutting the cake and cut it slowly. The edge of the cake began to curve downward. After 2 minutes, the cake had some slopes, looking like some low mountains. Mount New Moon. Zhao Feng gazed at it and found that the shape of the cake was that of the Mount New Moon. "Do you want to try some?" Zhang Han glanced at Zhao Feng and pointed to some of the cake that had been cut down on one side. "Okay." Zhao Feng smiled. He walked over and took a pot to hold the cake. "Come on, everyone, have a taste." Zhao Feng gave the cake to other people. Although it seemed that there was much cake, don't forget that there were more than 50 people here, so everyone could only have a small bite. "Wow, it's so good." "Great, boss. Your cake is tasty. You're great." Instructor Liu, while eating, gave Zhang Han a thumbs up. Others also couldn't stop praising it, saying that this was the best cake they had ever eaten. Zhang Han looked at him and smiled. He picked up a small piece of cake and put it in his mouth. The cake was still a little warm and very soft. A faint aroma of the mixture of eggs, milk, and others filled the mouth. It was a little sweet, but not too sweet, with a pure fragrance. It was no exaggeration to say that only one bite of the cake could make people love it immediately. Not bad. After Zhang Han finished eating, he began to work again. On the other chopping board, there were some fruits and vegetables that Zhang Han needed. He took a carrot and pulled a knife from the side. Zhang Han's hand moved quickly. The flashing knife made Ahu and others squint their eyes. He was moving the knife so fast. Instructor Liu even opened his mouth. He felt that the boss seemed to be a knife master. In just 5 seconds, the shape of a tree came out. The trunks and branches were all there, and there were even the branches as thin as a hair, but there were no leaves. Moreover, the root of the tree was in the shape of an awl. After finishing one, Zhang Han carefully put it in the cake. In this way, some trees without leaves were created and planted all around the cake. Then Zhang Han carved a lot of flowers with apples, watermelons, and other fruits, and then gently placed them on the cake. This also made the cake show the general outline of the Mount New Moon. In this way, things on the Mount New Moon were added one by one. More interestingly, Zhang Han customized some small biscuits in the shapes of pigs, calves, sheep, chickens, ducks, geese, dogs, and so on. And even the color and various differences of Thai lake black swine and sheep pigs were showed. They were put one by one in the area behind the mountain. Soon, the scene of the entire Mount New Moon was vividly displayed on this cake. My God, what an exquisite cake! Boss is really amazing. This is a work of art. With this craft, he's capable to dominate the cake world. Ahu and other people stood on the front and praised him in a low voice. There was scenery, but the characters were still needed. This was the most important step for Zhang Han. Wood carving. Wood carving was a kind of sculpture, which was often referred to as folk craft in our country. What Zhang Han wanted to do was different from traditional wood carvings, because what he planned to make was much more delicate. He took a piece of wood next to him and began to engrave on it with various knives. He didn't know much about wood carving, he was just doing it according to the picture in his heart. It needed the delicate control of strength for him to complete the carving. This was a job that would take much time. Zhang Han spent 2 hours on engraving this. Then the shape of the wood carving could be seen. Zhang Han and Xian were sitting together, leaning against each other, and Meng was sitting at the intersection of their legs. Dai and Little Hai were sitting behind them. Under the wood carving, there was a small wooden board, which was connected to the wood carving and used for fixing. Here was the shape, but there wasn't the soul. This required the final step, painting, and coloring. He painted with a pocket pen and it cost an hour. This way the wood carving had his soul. Xian was wearing a pink down jacket, leather shorts, and black leggings. Zhang Han was wearing a cotton padded coat and jeans. So was Meng, with cotton padded coat and jeans, but she was also wearing an earmuff. It was worth mentioning that not only Meng was smiling, the corners of Xian's mouth were also curled up. There was a sweet smile on her face. Then, Zhang Han carved a few words on the board below: Zhang Han, Xian, and Meng, a happy family. After doing this, Zhang Han put the wood carving on the cake and started the last step, applying the cream. With the white cream, people could find at once that it was a snow scene. The cream immediately made the whole scene change its style. It was just like a real romantic snow scene. There were even some vivid footprints: Zhang Han's big oar footprints, Meng's little footprints, Dai's bear's paw prints, Little Hai's dog footprints. All of them had their own traces on it. This birthday cake was also like the colored sculpture that was brought back by Xian last time. But the difference was that this represented Zhang Han's hope for the future. He wanted to bring Meng to play with snow and wanted Xian to smile happily at all times. This was Zhang Han's thoughts. On Xian's birthday, he wanted to express his thoughts with this piece of cake, which was made by himself. But it had not been finished yet, because the surrounding trees, carrots, were red. The last step was to apply the cream to the carrots. It could be said that this was the most difficult step because if you were not careful, you would break it. Even if it was Zhang Han, he was still doing it extremely carefully. Look at Zhang Han's expression and movements. So many people present were stunned and quite moved. From this, it could be seen how much he cared about his family. When all the trees had been painted, it was dawn. Okay, put it aside. After finishing it, Zhang Han stood up, patted his hands and said, "Okay." Zhao Feng nodded and pushed the dining car here. He, Ahu, Xuyong and Instructor Liu, each of them held one corner of the cake tray. While lifting it, Zhao Feng's eyes were focused on the cake and he reminded others nervously. "Slow down, be gentle, be careful. Ahu, be careful. Xuyong, be careful. Slow down, slowly. Be gentle." There were too many fragile parts on this cake, just like the branches. He was afraid of breaking them even with one blow. So they carefully put the cake in the dining car. Zhao Feng even did not dare to push the car. He said, "How about we carry the car in?" Zhang Han felt it funny and said, "Just push it, it's fine." If someone could break it with a single touch, Zhang Han wouldn't waste such a long time to make it. "Is it okay?" Zhao Feng confirmed again. "Yes." Zhang Han nodded. "Then I'll push it." Zhao Feng gently pushed the car to a room on the left and then pushed it directly into a freezer. After closing the door, Zhao Feng finally felt relieved. "I will go back first." Zhang Han looked at the time and it was almost 6:30, so he told them and left the company. At 6:40, Xian opened her eyes sleepily. Looking at the time, she knew she should get up. After quietly lying for a minute, she got out of the bedroom and went to the bathroom. However, when she just held the door handle of the bathroom, she felt that it was very quiet in the restaurant. She was stunned. Usually, at this time, Zhang Han would be making breakfast in the kitchen. Why wasn't there any sound there today? "Zhang Han?" Xian called him. No answer. "Zhang Han." Xian's sound increased by 3 decibels. She waited for 5 seconds and it was still silent in the restaurant. At ordinary times, when she called this way, Zhang Han had already responded quickly. "Where are you, Zhang Han?" After that, Xian quickly went to the stairs. She came to the first floor but didn't see Zhang Han. Then she hurried back to the second floor and opened the door of the secondary bedroom, but still didn't find him. Failing to find Zhang Han at this moment made Xian feel empty. In just a few days, Xian had become accustomed to seeing Zhang Han after getting up every morning. Sometimes, habits could change a lot. Xian stood at the door of the secondary bedroom, absent-minded. Suddenly, a sound of opening the door came from downstairs. Xian came to herself soon and hurriedly walked to the first floor. Seems that she wasn't afraid of anything. Even if there was a guest, she didn't care whether she'd be exposed or not. She only wanted to see Zhang Han at this moment. Fortunately, when she ran to the corner of the stairs, she saw Zhang Han coming over. "Zhang Han, where did you go?" Xian stood at the corner and asked softly. Zhang Han gazed at Xian, who was in white pajamas with eyes still heavy from sleep. He forgot to answer and went straight to her. Chapter 287, Contacts. "Why don't you answer me?" Xian asked. Since she just woke up, she looked adorable at this moment. Zhang Han walked to Xian and reached out his hand to fix her messy hair, and then he said with a chuckle, "I'm going to prepare breakfast." "Oh." Xian nodded slightly. "Is Meng Meng awake?" Zhang Han asked. "Not yet." As soon as Xian finished her words, Meng Meng's voice was heard from the master bedroom on the second floor. "Mama? Mama, Papa, oh." Since the little princess did not see Xian when she woke up, she burst out crying. "Hurry." The instant Xian finished speaking, Zhang Han bolted out. He moved so fast that Xian felt a little shocked. How does he run so fast? I haven't finished talking yet. He only cares about Meng Meng, idiot. At this moment, Xian felt somewhat envious. This was her life. Although Meng Meng was her own daughter, she was jealous of her at this point because of her possessiveness. Xian had seen a North American funny video not long ago. On the video, when parents kissed in front of their child, the blonde little girl shouted anxiously, "No." Finally, As the parents wanted to coax the little girl, she cried again, "No." Then she ran away in anger. The video was very interesting. Life was always colorful, and fun was just one of its components. Xian stood at the corner of the stairs. After 2 seconds, she went upstairs and walked to the bedroom, for she also wanted to sweet-talk the little princess who was crying. However, she found that Meng Meng had calmed down. "Mama, give me a hug." After catching sight of Xian, Meng Meng stretched her arms out in Zhang Han's arms. Xian was very pleased to take Meng Meng. Judging by Meng Meng's actions, she was much closer with Mama than Papa. The instant Xian smiled, she saw Meng Meng burrowing her little head into her chest. The teardrops in Meng Meng's eyes were all absorbed by her pajamas. Once, twice, 3 times. Perhaps Meng Meng felt more comfortable to wipe her tears with the pajamas. Xian did not know whether to laugh or cry as she saw what Meng Meng did. She threw herself into my arms just to wipe her tears. "Meng Meng, why did you cry? You seldom cry when you get up." Xian stretched out her fingers to touch the end of Meng Meng's nose and said, I dreamed, I fell from a height, I'm so scared." Meng Meng pouted and said in a childish tone, "Don't be afraid, Papa and Mama are with you." Xian smiled and said, "The sun is shining, and we should get up and go to Washington. I'm going to cook." After speaking, Zhang Han went downstairs to prepare the day's breakfast. At 7 o'clock in the morning, diners came into the restaurant one after the other. From 7:30 to 8 o'clock, the number of diners always increased. One may think that it was a little early for them to come here at this time, but they found that the food was all gone if they arrived by 8:30. Therefore, they knew that they had to come before 8 o'clock if they wanted to have breakfast. Just as an old saying goes, the early bird gets the worm. Even so, there were only half of all the dinners. In this era, in addition to those who had a routine job, many other young people got up at 9 or 10 o'clock to have their brunch. Even among those of the people who did a 9-to-5 job, many of them slept until the time they had to wake up as well. Of course, there were also some who had a regular routine, sleeping early and getting up early over the years. This mode of life was beneficial to their health. At 8:30, in Zif's rented apartment. "Ow!" Zif yawned and opened her eyes in a daze. Then she glanced at the clock on the wall. "It's just 8:30, and I can sleep for another while." She stayed in bed for half a minute. "Ah!" Zif screamed. She sat up and looked at the clock. "It's 8:30, God, my gosh." She reached out her hands and pulled her hair randomly, then went out of bed and walked to the secondary bedroom. She knocked the door several times and said loudly, "Lili, get up quickly, or you will miss the breakfast. Hurry up." "Ouch, stop shouting, I see." Zhang Li's muzzy voice was heard from the room. They had played poker until 2 o'clock last night, and now they still wanted to sleep. However, lured by the delicacies, the 3 of them all got up. They did not have enough time to make up but directly hurried to the restaurant after putting on clothes. It was already about 8:40 when they reached the restaurant. In front of the restaurant 5 Mercedes were parked. On seeing these cars, they knew that Zhao Feng and his men had come. They entered the restaurant. Then they saw Zhang Han and Meng Meng sitting on the sofa watching cartoons. Zhao Feng and Ahu were sitting at a table. "My gosh, we're late." Zif curled her lips and snorted, and then she looked at Zhang Han and said loudly, "Be brother-in-law, I'm hungry." "Brother, have you saved us any food?" Zhang Li asked frankly. "There are 3 bowls of fried egg rice in the kitchen." Zhang Han glanced at them. Judging from their hairstyles, he knew that they were in a hurry and just got up. "Yeah?" Zif let out a cry. After taking the fried egg rice, the 3 of them started to eat. "Where is elder sister Yan?" Zif asked while eating. "She's dressing upstairs." Zhang Han responded. "Oh." Zif continued to eat. After getting the answer, a few minutes later, Xian came downstairs. She spruced herself up today. She wore a white Chanel t-shirt with a pair of red curved shorts, like a skirt, which made her white and slender legs stand out more than usual. She wore a pair of white sneakers and a Louis Vuitton bag, with a peak cap in her hand. She looked so beautiful. During this day, Xian was calmer than usual. She glanced at Zif and her companions, then she did not greet them but sat by Meng to watch TV with her. After breakfast, it took the three of them another half an hour to wake up. It was 9:40 when they finished doing everything. Xian checked the time and said, "Let's go." Then everyone stood up and prepared to go out. As for Zhang Han, he walked to the kitchen first and took 2 plastic bags. "What's in the bags?" "Rice and eggs." Xian was a little stunned. One of the plastic bags contained a few leftover rice, while the other only contained an egg. He was so casual. "This is enough." Zhang Han slightly raised the bags in his hand. "Brother, aren't you being too humble? You should show your superb cooking skills." Zhang Li was speechless. "That's right, you can defeat the opponents by virtue of your cooking, not necessarily the ingredients." Zif twisted her mouth. "Well, let's go." Xian's eyes flashed. She gave a nod and took the lead to walk out. She thought that using simple leftovers and an egg to win the competition did show their contempt to them, so it was a great way to punish those who were arrogant. After going out, Xian, with Meng in her arms, got into the panda car with Zhang Han, while others got into the Mercedes. They drove to Aslan Restaurant. In the meantime, in Aslan Restaurant, at ordinary times, there were only few people here, but now it was full of people. The manager of the restaurant was very supportive of this cooking competition. To be honest, without his support, those men who went to Zhang Han's restaurant would not have been so arrogant. At this time, there were dozens of people in the restaurant. 1/3 of them were the media reporters invited by the manager, 1/3 were their friends, relatives, and some famous chefs, while others were just passers-by. In the past few days, they tried their best to run promotions. Therefore, many people of the culinary industry in South Island heard that LV Zhao was going to compete with the boss of Meng's leisure restaurant that was becoming popular recently. In fact, this competition only attracted some people's attention. Usually, the showdown in cooking was a decent gimmick. However, LV Zhao was of low status even though he was one of Wang Long's disciples, so there were not many people in that circle coming here to watch the competition. If it were Wang Long who joined the competition, lots of people would have come to see him. The manager, standing next to LV Zhao, checked the time and said, "It's 15 to 10. He promised that he would come here." LV Zhao chuckled and said, "If not, we can take advantage of public opinion to smear him. Ha ha." The manager patted LV Zhao on the shoulder and said, "Our boss is coming soon. If you win and please the boss, you'll definitely get a raise. Don't worry, manager, it's impossible for an insignificant person to defeat me," LV Zhao answered with great confidence. At this moment, in the center of the restaurant 2 simple kitchen counters were placed, with some stoves, chopping boards and other utensils on them. There were a lot of small chairs 10 meters away from the 2 chairs on the left, and a total of about 60 or 70 people were sitting on them. Furthermore, there were some guests who had just finished breakfast or were still eating. They intended to watch the match after breakfast. On the right was a row of 16 or 17 sets of upscale tables and chairs. There was no doubt that they were reserved for VIPs. "My master is coming." LV Zhao's eyes suddenly lit up. He quickly got up and walked forward. "Master." LV Zhao greeted him with a smile as he approached his master. His master's name was Luo Sheng. He was popular among the people in the culinary industry in Hong Kong, for he was the top disciple of Master Chef Wang Long, with superb cooking skills. Luo Sheng came here with 4 his friends. On seeing them, the people in the circle burst into exclamation. "Chef Luo actually comes to support LV Zhao. I'm afraid that the opponent is likely to lose since he's here. The jury will definitely respect Mr. Luo. This is the importance of the contacts." Yeah, Chef Liao of Waimei Restaurant came as well as him. Chef Hong of Faison Western Restaurant, Chef Ma of Linksy Restaurant and Chef An of Tpin Restaurant also show up. They are all heavyweights. Luo Sheng nodded to LV Zhao without saying anything. His presence had shown his attitude. Mr. Luo, Mr. Liao, Mr. Hong, Mr. Ma, Mr. An, welcome, come in please. The manager said to them with a smile and showed them the way. Chapter 288, The Competition Begins. As they walked, a lot of people greeted them. Hello, Mr. Luo, Mr. Hong, long time no see. Luo Sheng and other heavyweights did not give an enthusiastic response for their greetings but nodded slightly. Because most of them did not know these people who said hello to them, even those who they were acquainted with were much inferior to them. Those reporters also picked up cameras to take many photos of Luo Sheng and other heavyweights under everyone's gaze. Luo Sheng and his companions were invited to the VIP seat, accompanied by the manager and LV Zhao. However, in less than 2 minutes, another group of people came into the restaurant. A total of 5 people, headed by a middle-aged bald man with a pair of glasses. When the manager saw these people, his face changed and he hurriedly ran to them with LV Zhao. Boss. The manager walked forward and greeted them with enthusiasm. The bald man was the owner of the restaurant, Nuxbo, who was in possession of a good fortune in Hong Kong and was also a businessman. At this moment, hearing the manager's greeting, Nuxbo nodded gently. President Li, President Feng, President Ren, President Wang, let's go inside to have a seat. Nuxbo smiled at the 4 middle-aged men next to him and walked to the seats inside directly. Luo Sheng and the other chefs all stood up to greet them. For them, it was beneficial to know more bosses like Nuxbo as they were all rich men. After shaking hands with them, Nuxbo and his companions sat beside them. Chef Luo. After sitting down, Nuxbo said with a smile, I'm going to open a restaurant in the North Ring. If you are interested, you can come over and work for me. I guarantee that you will get better payment and benefits. Thank you for your kindness, President Nu. Luo Sheng said with a smile, but my contract has not expired. My apprentice LV Zhao also learned from me and you can trust his cooking skills. President Nu, you can leave the opportunity for promotion and raise to him. On hearing his words, LV Zhao became so pleased. Ha ha ha. Nuxbo laughed and said, of course, Chef LV is a great talent, so I won't let him go because Aslin Restaurant needs him. Chef LV, today's competition is also a great chance. If he perform well, I will give him a raise. Thank you, boss. LV Zhao thanked him with excitement. At this time, President Li, who was standing next to Nuxbo, looked at the people beside Luo Sheng and said, Brother Nu, don't focus only on Chef Luo. The people who sat next to him are all famous chefs. Chef An, have you made a decision on what I told you last time? Thank you, President Li. I can leave the job at the end of this month. At that time, I hope that President Li can take care of me. Chef An saluted President Li and answered, hey, it's just a piece of cake. Everyone chatted with each other. The dozens of people who were sitting on the left also whispered to each other. Those who knew the people sitting on the stage were gossiping their stories. They said, do you see the man with long hair? He's President Li, who runs 2 companies and his wealth is worth over hundreds of millions yuan. Is he really awesome, Fu K? I thought it was just a cooking competition between 2 small restaurants and didn't expect that the people who support LV Zhao have such strong backgrounds. Small restaurant? In fact, the owner of this restaurant, President Nu, works in the catering industry, earning lots of money. He's indeed a rich man. The presidents next to him are all his friends, who came here for his sake, or, do you think those big shots will come for no reason? After 5 minutes, the manager found that it was nearly 10 o'clock. He, therefore, asked Nuxbo for instructions. After he nodded, the manager stepped between the 2 kitchen counters and took the microphone, then said, it's nearly 10 o'clock. But the representatives of Meng Meng's leisure restaurant haven't shown up yet. Maybe they're scared. Whether they come or not, we have to take a correct attitude. Aslan Restaurant, founded 5 years ago, enjoys a very good reputation in Hong Kong and has been on various food shows. It was ranked as a 2-star Michelin restaurant last year, and this year we will be promoted to a 3-star Michelin restaurant. This time, I want to tell you the grudges between Aslan Restaurant and Meng Meng's Leisure Restaurant. Meng Meng's Leisure Restaurant opened nearly a month ago, and I heard that its owner was an outsider. To be honest, coming to Hong Kong to make money isn't a big deal. After all, he just went into business, but he did go too far by promoting his restaurant unscrupulously and hyping it shamelessly. They found an unknown fraud to improve the grade of their restaurant, saying that the food there exceeded the standard for 3-star Michelin restaurants. Haha, has he seen the brand of Michelin? Let's be serious, they defrauded everyone. Therefore, Chef LV Zhao of Aslan Restaurant decided to compete with them, going public with their deceit. After he finished speaking, everyone below the stage talked with each other and several media people kept recording. Hearing his one-sided speech, everyone believed him. All right. After about 30 seconds, the manager said again, "Next, I'd like to introduce the judges for you. This gentleman is the famous entrepreneur, President Nu. This is the famous entrepreneur, President Li. You must have heard of him. He is Liu Sheng, a famous chef, the top disciple of Wang Long, who is one of the master chefs in Hong Kong. His understanding of delicacies is more than enough to be a judge." The man beside him is Xuanhuan. After some introductions, a burst of applause was heard. Now, it's 10:01. If the other party doesn't show up at 10:30, this competition will be terminated by the victory of Aslan Restaurant. At that time, I hope that the media reporters present can report truthfully. The manager checked the time and said, "Of course, they may have inquired about and found out the social status as well as the level of the chefs of my Aslan Restaurant. Probably they're afraid. I can understand them, for they are newcomers. I promise that as long as they apologize to us, we won't hold them responsible. After all, we don't intend to start a conflict. Catering is to serve everyone, and we hope they start knowing their place." Seeing the manager's performance, Nuxba nodded, secretly thinking that he had chosen a capable person. However, before he finished his words, another group of people hurried into the restaurant. At the beginning, those who were standing behind exclaimed. Gradually, everyone fixed eyes on them. Under everyone's gaze, more than 10 men in black suits with ties took the lead. After opening the door, they stood in awe outside the restaurant. Next to the door, they stood straight, leaving the impression on everyone that they were bodyguards with extremely strong discipline. The group of people accompanied by these bodyguards were likely to be powerful. Even Nuxba and other heavyweights were curious about them because the powerful people, like them, would not bring so many bodyguards. Does a big shot come here to watch the competition? Everyone was thinking about this. However, when the manager saw 7 or 8 people behind walking in and a cute little girl, his mouth trembled slightly. Meng Meng's Leisure Restaurant. Come on, that's too much of an entrance. Zhang Han and Xian led the way. Xian was still dressed a white t-shirt, red shorts and sneakers, but she also wore a cap and a pair of sunglasses at this point. As for Zhang Han, he was in a beige casual suit. What made him different was that he wore a pair of sunglasses as well, which belonged to the same lover style as Xian's. Meng Meng, in Zhang Han's arms, with a ponytail, looked at the people in the restaurant curiously with her big, clear eyes. Zhao Feng kept up with them, followed by Zhang Li, Zif, Liu King and Liana. After they stepped into the restaurant, Ahu and others who had stood next to the door followed them. They got to the left front side of the stage and sat down, occupying a patch of land. At this moment, 5 or 6 media reporters came in. They were all Liana's friends. Seeing what was happening, everyone present stopped talking, and the whole restaurant fell into silence. Ahem! Nuxbo came to his sense and coughed to remind the manager to receive the guests. Judging by what they did, they obviously have strong background. One more friend, one more ally. Anyhow, we should invite them to the judging table to have a talk. However, Nuxbo's facial muscles trembled when he heard the manager's words. Gurgle. The manager swallowed briefly and said in a much weaker tone as he looked at the crowd, everyone from Meng Meng's leisure restaurant, welcome. Now that you are here, can this game start? Yes, Xian said very coldly. Xian's aura was so strong that she seemed to be the person who gave the order. After hearing what she said, the manager nodded and said, Okay, let's get start. The chefs of either party, please walk on the stage. Go ahead. Xian glanced at Zhang Han and said, Well. Zhang Han nodded, then he stood up and walked up. At this time, Meng Meng, who was next to Xian, pouted and said, Papa, fighting. Zhang Han turned his head and smiled. At this point, everyone could feel that his eyes behind the sunglasses were also filled with happiness. Zhang Han walked to the stage and stood next to the manager. As for LV Zhao, he walked to the other side and sized up Zhang Han in disdain. It was really amusing for him to find a group of people trying to so obviously increase their stature. In his opinion, the boss in front of him, as a newcomer, could not have worthwhile connections. There was no denying that he was pretending to be a powerful man. When you lose, you will show your true colors. LV Zhao sneered. Next, the two chefs will introduce themselves. The manager put on a solemn look. Before he finished speaking, Zhang Han interrupted, Don't waste my time and start the competition directly. Everyone felt that Zhang Han's words were suffused with contempt. At this point, Nuxbo, who was sitting behind, frowned slightly. Are you being too arrogant? Even if you are a rich man, you shouldn't forget where you are. A powerful dragon cannot crush a snake in its old haunts. As an outsider, it's odd for you to have such a bad attitude. So, he said in a colder tone, let's get started now, for our time is also very precious. Ah, well. The manager hurriedly nodded and said, Now, the competition begins. Chapter 289, Take it to feed the pigs. I'll set a timer for 30 minutes. Now, let me start it. The manager took out a timer and pressed the start button. Hearing his remark, LV Zhao went straight to his kitchen counter. He glanced at Zhang Han coldly. After Zhang Han arrived at the kitchen counter, he shook his head and sneered. Sir, it seems that I have informed you that you should bring your own ingredients to the gauntlet. I deem that if we use the same ingredients, you are bound to lose. Since I don't want you to lose miserably, I gave you time to make preparations. However, you seem to have forgotten preparing ingredients. Ha, you're so funny. Manager, please ask someone to give some ingredients to him. At this point, Zhao Feng stood up, then he frowned slightly and said in a chill tone, Stop talking nonsense, hurry up. Zhao Feng's action made the atmosphere on the stage grow very tense all of a sudden. The dozens of media as well as their friends, relatives and guests, somehow, felt afraid and did not dare to say anything. As for LV Zhao, he still stayed calm because President Nu was on his side. Therefore, he shouted while staring at Zhao Feng, Who are you talking to? That's enough, stop talking, let's get started, Nuxbo said coldly. At this moment, LV Zhao obediently shut up. But he also glared at Zhao Feng several times. Zhao Feng felt a little funny as he saw what LV Zhao did. Idiots, like LV Zhao, would be killed in 3 days if he became an underground gangster. Zhao Feng, sit down and ignore them, Xian said as if she were the hostess. After finishing his words, Zhao Feng also sat down. Zhao Feng. On hearing this name, Nuxbo suddenly froze. He thought that he had heard it, but he failed to remember it for a while. Mama, they are so fierce. Meng Meng whispered in Xian's arms. Xian touched Meng Meng's little head and replied softly, Because they are bad guys. Bad guys. Papa will be really formidable in the face of bad guys, and can defeat them with only a blow. Meng Meng muttered, nestling in Xian's arms and glanced around the restaurant with curiosity. At the kitchen counter, LV Zhao washed his hands and said as he looked at Zhang Han, In this case, Don't blame others if you lose. Oh. Zhang Han stood behind the kitchen counter, then looked at LV Zhao and said flatly, "Start your cooking." His indifferent attitude infuriated LV Zhao, who secretly gritted his teeth. "You are just an unknown chef. It is unreasonable for you not to take this contest seriously and pretend not to care about the result because your opponent is me." However, LV Zhao did not want to bother about this now. After all, President Nu and Liu Sheng were still watching. If he performed well, he would definitely get a raise. LV Zhao, therefore, looked at the audiences and said loudly, "The dish I'm cooking is called Jinchan abalone. It is a famous dish with main ingredients as abalone and fish paste, and it is also one of the dishes in the Manhan feast. I select the half-catty Japanese abalone, which is one of the 3 famous abalones in the world. This kind of abalones, whose color is gray, are like shoe-shaped ingots and have vertical edge. It is tasty and refreshing. This dish, named Jinchan abalone, will be more delicious because of this type of abalone. Concerning other ingredients such as shrimp, I chose those of best quality, and the details will not be covered here. Next, I'll show you the specific steps of Jinchan abalone." After finishing his words, LV Zhao nodded and began to prepare ingredients. His friends and relatives below the stage took the lead to clap their hands. Under everyone's gaze, LV Zhao started cooking. He did fine work and every step was done perfectly. LV Zhao explained while moving, 250 grams of fresh shrimp, 60 grams of fat lard, 4 magpie eggs, 8 green peas, 100 grams of broccoli, and 24 pieces of cucumber skin. In addition to these ingredients, he would explain every step in a professional manner. Even Liu Sheng, Chefan, and other chefs who were sitting on the jury's seats, nodded repeatedly, and their faces shined with an expression of appreciation. Even Nu Zhibo nodded with satisfaction, thinking that Lu Zhao's operation was really great. In the beginning, people kept their attention on LV Zhao, but gradually, they found that Zhang Han actually had not started cooking yet. Why doesn't he begin to cook? People looked at Zhang Han in surprise. What is he doing? Except for Xian and her companions, others completely did not understand his behavior. Has he given up as he knows that he is doomed to lose? Why are you still so arrogant since you know that you will be defeated? Many people thought that Zhang Han was a little arrogant and somewhat self-contemptuous at the same time. It did not make sense for him to stand straight there with a chill expression since he clearly knew that he would not win. Liu Sheng glanced at Zhang Han and sneered, "He's just putting on an act. He's also an interesting person, and I don't know when he will start. It's halfway to the deadline. I'm afraid he will give up. Why bother?" Several chefs shook their heads repeatedly. The insider knew the ropes, while the outsider just came along for the ride. They all knew that it was not enough for a chef to prepare a dish carefully in half an hour. Moreover, he would feel very tired during this period. Only when he was extremely serious could he cook efficiently. But the one in front of us is just standing there. Is he hiding his eyes because they are filled with confusion, with a pair of sunglasses? Almost all the judges sneered secretly. It seemed that he could be described with one word: overconfident. As the time passed by, Zhang Han did not start cooking though nearly half an hour had vanished. At this moment, everyone below the stage began to talk with each other. Some sneers were heard while they were speaking, almost all of which were from LV Zhao's friends and relatives. As for Xian, she stayed calm and sat still, knowing that Zhang Han was bound to win. However, Zif and Zhang Li, who were short-tempered, felt anxious. "Brother-in-law, what are you doing? Go ahead, defeat him." Zif whispered. "Why doesn't my brother start cooking?" Zhang Li said in a hurry. Xian, who was standing next to them, said, "Don't worry. Auntie Fei, Auntie Lilai, don't worry. My papa is the most awesome person." Meng Meng snorted. Meng Meng's expressions and manners would usually attract a lot of attention, but now, most of the people present focused on LV Zhao. Soon, after 28 minutes, LV Zhao's dish came out of the pot. More than 10 abalones were placed around the plate, with shrimp and other accessories in the middle, which looked like a sunflower and was a feast for the eyes. After finishing cooking, LV Zhao wiped his hands with a towel and smiled. Then he looked at Zhang Han and said as he shook his head, "Are you shocked by my cooking, or are you just standing there to see the scenery? Ha ha, to be honest, you had given up very quickly. Even then, you're the most overconfident person I have ever seen. Give up?" Zhang Han chuckled and said in a chill tone, "A dozen of seconds is enough for me to defeat you." Although there was sarcasm in LV Zhao's words, although a majority of people were very disdainful, although the judges whispered about him, Zhang Han did not care. How can an anteater care about the ant's gaze? I can crush him if he annoys me. Nobody else mattered, and what counted was that today was Xian's birthday. Since Zhang Han was in a good mood, he did not want to pay attention to insignificant people or things. However, as soon as he finished his words, everyone present froze, then a blast of guffaw was heard. How is he still stubborn to admit a defeat at this time? However, the next moment, everyone was absolutely shocked. Zhang Han moved. He moved so fast and cooked efficiently. He made a fire on the stove and placed the pan on it, then he poured some oil into the pan. Under everyone's gaze, he took out 2 plastic bags from his pocket. One contained leftover, while the other contained only 1 egg. What? What is he going to do? Everyone was stunned at this point and stared at him blankly. They saw Zhang Han pouring the leftover into the pot without stirring them. He just allowed the rice to be fried, then he took out the egg with his right hand. As the spiritual force pierced the egg through his palm, his hand moved gently. When the eggshell was broken, several streams of smashed egg liquid flowed into the rice. They formed a round egg layer on the lowermost layer. Then, Zhang Han did nothing but waited. 10 seconds. 20 seconds later, as the egg was cooked, the lower layer of rice was a little burned, forming a slightly hard thin layer. It was like the rice layer on the lowermost side when farmers cooked rice with a cauldron. Only 20 seconds later, Zhang Han picked up the pan and turned it upside down on the plate nearby. This nondescript fried egg rice was cooked. Zhang Han did not even put chopped green onions or salt in it. Seeing what he did, everyone was totally dumbfounded. At this moment, the whole restaurant was in an uproar. Many people thought that he might as well not cook this dish. But Xian and the people who supported Zhang Han smiled without saying anything, for these people would not know the taste of this dish until they tasted it. Even Zhang Li and Zif reacted with joy in their eyes. This was a better way to defeat an opponent rather than winning by virtue of cooking skills. Overt contempt. Even if you've been busy for hours, I can beat you in 20 seconds. Even if you cook carefully, I can defeat you by right of my intentional burnt rice. At this point, they were looking forward to the judges' expressions when they tasted the rice. Time's up. After coming to his sense, the manager said, "Take the dishes cooked by the 2 chefs to judges." After he finished his remark, 2 staff of the restaurant carried the 2 dishes to the stage. What was funny was that the staff, who carried the dish cooked by Zhang Han, put on a detestable look. The 2 dishes were to be tasted by every judge. However, when the staffs were about to divide them, Liu Sheng's face changed. He sneered and said, "I just want to taste Jinshan abalone. To tell you the truth, the pig wash cooked by me is much better than the other dish. It will insult me if I taste such a terrible dish. It's too ridiculous. It's too ridiculous." As a chef, he does not take a right attitude. I don't like this kind of person. That's right, this rice should be taken to feed the pigs. I feel disgusted as I look at it, let alone eat it. Chapter 290, Liu Qingfeng's arrival. A barrage of voices broke out among the judges, voices that were laced with sarcasm and mockery, not the whispering behind your back type of mockery, but the right in your face type. It was sarcasm done in the rawest and most blatant of ways. Under normal circumstances, the audience below the stage would think that something underhanded or shady must be going on, but now, They all thought that the panel's reaction was completely natural and justified. Seriously, how was one even supposed to eat something that was the product of such inept attempt at cooking? On the other side of the stage, Xian frowned slightly at the judge's reaction. Zhao Feng stood up abruptly with a dark look on his face. But before he could open his mouth, he saw Zhang Han waving him off. What the hell was that supposed to mean? Zhao Feng turned his rage-filled eyes towards the panel of judges. In the end, he chose to keep quiet. That, of course, had nothing to do with Zhang Han's disinclination to cause public unrest. Instead, it had more to do with the fact that he had noticed, through the restaurant's window, a cavalcade of luxury cars pulling up outside the restaurant. A group of people stepped out of the cars and were soon making their way over to the restaurant with haste. Back at the judges' table, each judge took a portion of LV Zhao's Ginshan abalone. As they ate, they each gave their comments successively. Not bad at all, it has appealing colors and an appetizing aroma, and the texture is good as well. I'll give 99 out of 100. The 1 mark is deducted to prevent Chef LV from getting ahead of himself. Well, since I can't give you 100, I'm forced to give you 99. Very well, looks like little LV's culinary skills have vastly improved from last time, Liu Sheng said, shaking his head with a smile. To be able to make Ginshan abalone to this level means that you're already near my own level of skills, President Nu. Looks like you've hit the jackpot this time. Huh? He is indeed. Ah? Nuxbo stopped mid-sentence when he suddenly saw the group of people entering through the restaurant's door. PFFT. Nuxbo broke out in a series of coughs. Chairman Liu? Nuxbo had spat out the abalone which had been inside his mouth when recognized who the newcomers were. Moments after Nuxbo had spat out his abalone, Liu Sheng had noticed the newcomers as well. All of a sudden, Liu Sheng's eyes grew as wide as saucers. PFFT. A piece of abalone flew out from Liu Sheng's mouth. Ahem, master? Liu Sheng had recognized his master, Wang Long, among the group of people who had just walked in. After Liu Sheng had spat out his abalone, the same thing was about to happen to Xuanhuan, who was sitting beside Liu Sheng. Xuanhuan's face changed suddenly. PFFT. And there went Xuanhuan's abalone. Master Chef Baimu? After Xuanhuan's abalone was sent flying, all the other chefs beside him had pretty much the same reaction. Master Chef San Ming? PFFT. Yet another abalone was sent flying. PFFT. That's right, another abalone. Master Chef Kong? All 4 master chefs of Hong Kong are all here. PFFT. PFFT. The whole place was practically raining abalones at this point. Continuous voices reverberated around the hall. Right then, the eyes of everyone present were about as wide as the plethora of regurgitated abalones lying around. A group of abalone spitters? Was that a thing nowadays? But when the crowd turned around and saw the group of people, all of whom were exuding uncommon temperament, heading towards them post-haste, looks of amazement instantly formed on their faces. The group of newcomers consisted of around 10 people. The leader of the group was a man wearing a black tang suit. His jacket was unbuttoned, thus revealing the white shirt that he wore underneath the tang suit. The man had short hair and thick eyebrows. His expression seemed very nonchalant as he toyed with his bead bracelet with his right hand. That man was none other than Liu Qingfeng. Seems pretty lively around here, huh? Said Liu Qingfeng in a rough tone. Liu Qingfeng kept walking towards the restaurant's interior. The restaurant manager still had no idea who the newcomers were. In fact, he did not think his mind had caught up to whatever that was going on yet. The manager was just about to step forward to welcome the newcomers when, all of a sudden, a shadow zoomed past him. The restaurant manager strained to make out who it was that had run past him with such haste. Hey, isn't that my boss, Nuxbu? The manager thought, but why is he in such a hurry to greet these people? He's acting like he's the restaurant manager or something. During that few seconds of the manager's stupor, something else happened. Swish, Swish, swish. President Li, President Huey, and the others had all rushed forward to greet the newcomers. The manager's heart literally skipped a beat. These must be people of inordinately high status. Still, the manager had failed to recognize the true extent of those people's greatness. That was why the manager nearly bit off his own tongue when he heard President Liu's next words. "Oh, my, Chairman Liu, nice to meet you. It's a real pleasure. What an honor to have you grace our little restaurant with your presence. What an absolute honor," Nuxbo said with a subservient expression. A look of confusion formed on Liu Qingfeng's face. "And you are?" Nuxbo answered quickly. "Me, I'm Little Nu, and I'm the owner of this restaurant. Last time, during the trade show, I was lucky enough watch you in action, Chairman Liu." "Oh, Little Nu, is it?" Liu Qingfeng nodded blandly. "Nice to meet you, Chairman Liu. I'm Little Li. Well, last time. Hi, Chairman Liu, I'm Little Huey." If the people in the crowd were all bespectacled, their glasses would have fallen off their faces right about now. Earlier, when Nuxbo and the others made their entrance, they had acted as if they were kings and monarchs, but now, they were acting like they were mere eunuchs at the service of an emperor. Liu Qingfeng glanced at the few men whose names he had never even heard before. He nodded and gave a superficial answer. "I heard that a culinary competition is taking place here. It's not over yet, right?" Nuxbo quickly said. No, number. The two chefs had just finished preparing their dishes. "Chairman Liu, please, take a seat." "Sure, I might as well sample a few bites. Will it be appropriate if I were to become one of the competition's judges?" Liu Qingfeng asked, looking at Nuxbo. Of course it'll be appropriate. How can it not, Chairman Liu? You've tasted all kinds of delicacies from all around the world. You're the best judge we can ask for." Nuxbo and the others led Liu Qingfeng to his seat. When he walked past Zhang and Zhang Han, Liu Qingfeng gave each of them a pointed look. Though he said nothing, through that gesture, he was letting them both know the reason he was here. After that, Liu Qingfeng and those who had arrived together with him walked towards the table and seating area that was reserved for judges. Under normal circumstances, Nuxbo would have fawned over Wang Long and the other famous master chefs too, but Liu Qingfeng's presence was so powerful that his mind was actually swooning a little. He had completely forgotten to greet Wang Long and the other master chefs even after they had all taken their seats. Still, Wang Long and the other master chefs had acted graciously and with much understanding. After all, the old man beside them was Liu Qingfeng, a man who possessed top-notch financial resources and whose influence extended throughout the entire nation. LV Zhao and other members of the culinary world, on the other hand, cared more about Wang Long and the master chefs. It was not every day that they got to see all four master chefs gathered in one place. LV Zhao quickly greeted Wang Long when the latter walked past the chef's counter. "Grandmaster," said LV Zhao. Wang Long's reaction to his greeting was something that he had never anticipated before. Wang Long had acted as if he had not even heard his greeting. In fact, Wang Long barely spared LV Zhao a glance. It was like LV Zhao was just another stranger to Wang Long. LV Zhao felt his heart stopped for a moment. Oh, crap. Based on the look on his face, the Grandmaster doesn't seem all that happy. Wang Long received another greeting when the group finally reached their seats. It was Liu Sheng who had quickly stood up and greeted Wang Long. "Master." This time, Wang Long did react, and his reaction was a powerful one. Wang Long glared at Liu Sheng with eyes that were filled with ice. Liu Sheng shuddered. Uh-oh, this is bad. The master is obviously pissed off. Everyone took their seats. At the judges' table, more flattery and fawning ensued. Meanwhile, murmurs and voices broke out in the audience's seat. "Who's that? Wait, you're SHing me, right? You're saying you don't know him? He's Liu Qingfeng, Chairman Liu, and I'll be DMND, because you want to know what his net worth is? 700 billion, that's how much he's worth. Yikes. Good lord. So he's a VIP of that caliber. I can't believe I saw Chairman Liu with my own two eyes today. A series of gasps sounded among the crowd. The moment Zhao Feng saw Liu Qingfeng, Zhao Feng knew what Liu Qingfeng's purpose was in coming here. Still, he figured the master's wife might not be aware of the Liu Qingfeng's reason for being here. That was why Zhao Feng was now standing beside Xian, quietly explaining to her that Liu Qingfeng was here to help. Now Xian knew, those of and Zhang Li, who were both seated beside her, were still clueless. The whole grand entrance scene made Zhao feel a little curious, so there she was, gawking at Liu Qingfeng with a look of surprise and suspicion on her face. Although she knew who Liu Qingfeng was, this was still her first time seeing him in person. Zhang Li, on the other hand, had already been harboring feelings of frustration ever since she heard the judge's mocking remarks just now. She stood up from her seat and stared right at the judges. What's the matter with you people? Is this competition still on or what? The dishes are already prepared, so will you please hurry up and taste them? Do you know how annoying it is to watch you people dilly-dallying and dragging things out? Swish. The entire restaurant plunged into silence. Everyone turned their eyes towards the bold spitfire that was Zhang Li. What did you just say? Nuxbo was a little irked. A dark glow formed on his face as he injected iciness into his tone. Do you even have the right to voice out your opinion here? Why not? A sudden voice sounded. That voice had come from the person beside Nuxbo, and it sounded much rougher and louder than Nuxbo's own voice. This isn't a business setting, nor is this a formal meeting. Surely, anyone is allowed to voice their opinions? Ah? Nuxbo's face froze. He glanced at Liu Qingfeng with a vacant look on his face. It took him 2 seconds to recover from his stupor. He blushed and quickly backtracked. Yes, he said, Chairman Liu is absolutely right. Ahem, okay, well, everyone, feel free to speak casually, free speech, right? Nuxbo had already noticed something amiss before he even finished his sentence just now. Obviously, Chairman Liu had not brought the 4 master chefs here to date to support his restaurant. If that was the case, then his eyes instantly darted to Zhang Han. Shock creeped onto Nuxbo's face just as a scary thought formed inside his mind. He knew Liu Qingfeng. Crap. Arg, what the heck have I done? If I somehow ended up on Chairman Liu's shit list, Nuxbo would burst into tears right then and there if only he had the tears to shed. Now, he looked entirely deflated and subdued. At the same time, the other big-shot presidents dared not utter a single word. Their spidery senses had alerted them that whatever that was going on today was far from ordinary. If even the hotshot presidents had chosen to remain silent, it went without saying that none of the other judges and the audience would dare make a sound. Once again, the entire restaurant descended into silence. This beautiful lady is right. If this is a competition, then you should all show some competitive spirit. Aren't the dishes ready? Now, serve them up so we can sample them. Liu Qingfeng said with a wave of his hand. Yes, right away, Nuxbo said. Then he turned to the manager and said, bring them up. The restaurant manager swiftly carried the 2 dishes to the judge's table. Then, he placed a clean plate and new pair chopsticks in front of Liu Qingfeng. Please help yourself, the manager said quietly. Liu Qingfeng picked up the chopsticks and, before sampling the food, he asked, who made this abalone? It's made by this restaurant's head chef, LV Zhao, Nuxbo answered. Oh, okay, then why hasn't anyone sampled this fried rice? Liu Qingfeng asked. Just now, they said it was because it had been prepared sloppily and that it was no better than pig fodder. They all refused to taste it, Zhang Li said loudly. The faces of Nuxbo and the other judges froze the moment those words were thrown out. All of them were now eyeing Liu Qingfeng's expression warily. Liu Qingfeng's facial expression did not reveal much. His words, on the other hand, made Nuxbo and the others break out in cold sweat. Oh, pig fodder, I see, Then why don't I have a taste of this so-called pig fodder? Liu Qingfeng said casually. Then, he picked up a mouthful of fried rice with his chopsticks and placed it into his mouth. During his first bite, Liu Qingfeng thought it tasted rather bland. It was as though it lacked saltiness as well as the kind of flavor that could only be produced by a special blend of seasoning and spices. But when he took his second bite, the aroma of the rice burst open. On the third bite, the taste of the egg began to spread, and on the fourth, the egg and rice's flavor formed a tantalizing combination and invaded his entire oral cavity. The more he chewed, the tastier it became. It was a bit like those better quality steamed buns and rice. Even if they were eaten plain, they would produce a similar effect too when chewed. Still, the rice from New Moon Bay was on another level entirely. Swallowing, Liu Qingfeng's eyes brightened. This pig fodder isn't bad at all, eh? Well, I think I'll skip the abalone. I've eaten it so many times that I'm tired of it already. I'll skip the comments as well. I'll leave the comments to the 4 master chefs beside me. By then, Nuxbo and the rest had already come to the realization that Liu Qingfeng was actually here as the opponent's backup. A slight chill went through Nuxbo's heart. If he got on Liu Qingfeng's bad side, and if Liu Qingfeng really was serious about ruining him, it would just be a matter of minutes before he was forced to file for bankruptcy. This was nothing if not a cause for a full-blown panic attack. Right now, Nuxbo was so anxious that he could barely sit still. His mind was a complete blur and he had no idea what to do. Following Liu Qingfeng's statement, Wang Long and the other master chefs of Hong Kong each sampled the dishes. When they were sampling the abalone, their demeanors were as if they had done the same thing 1,000 of times before. They all thought that the abalone would turn out much better tasting had they been the ones who prepared it. They could readily identify many weaknesses and flaws in the dish, be it regarding flame control or other nitty-gritty details of the culinary arts. But when they tasted the fried rice whose presentation looked unsavory and off-putting, a few bites were all it took for the aroma of the rice and the eggs to take over. Their expressions changed instantly. Wang Long's pupil constricted. These ingredients,